subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Zhao's petite and exquisite figure emerged from the deck. "Brother," EC nodded and spoke to Xiao. "You must have heard what Robin said just now, and now go full speed ahead. Fight to meet that Popeye before reaching Windmill Village." Hearing this, Zhao's little head nodded lightly. "Okay, I know." With a bang, Zhao's figure suddenly sneaked into the deck and disappeared. Soon, everyone on the Dawn found that the speed of the Dawn suddenly increased sharply. 5 days later, the Dawn sailed fast over the waters of the East Blue. Soon, the Windmill Village in Goa Kingdom can be seen from a distance. With Xiao as a ship spirit, Dawn no longer has to worry about getting lost. Therefore, EC did not bring any helmsmen, sailors, and navigators on this voyage. At this time, in the Windmill Village. At the port of Windmill Village, a large two-masted sailboat is stopping here. And in a tavern in the Windmill Village, a group of pirates were drinking happily. Among them, a red-haired young man sitting on the bar is unusually eye-catching. The 3 very distinctive scars on the left eye are exactly Shanks who returned from New World to East Blue. Needless to say, these people in the tavern at this time are all members of the Red Hair Pirates. "Ah, the boss is a scumbag every time I bet and lose to Beckman." "That's right. It's really super rude. There is such a poor captain. I'm really sorry. I don't dare to say my captain's name to the outside world." 39 Ha 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 ha. You talked about my heart. Indeed, every time I see the boss lose to Beckman, I think he is too bad. 99 I don't know why I was taken aboard by him in a mysterious way at that time. Oh, I'm in tears when I talk about it. I didn't expect the boss to be such a poor person. Ding bell inside the tavern. A group of pirates were talking about their captain. As the bells on both sides of the wooden door of the tavern rang, the 2 children ran out of the tavern one after the other. "Luffy, come on, I'll show you Shank's pirate ship." Walking in front was a lovely girl with 2 color hair. The girl's left eye is covered by the front hair, and the ears on both sides are covered with earphones. As the girl walked by, the singing in the earphones could be heard from time to time. "Yuta, wait for me." 35 behind the girl Yuta, Luffy, the protagonist of the original novel, is trotting along while waving his little hands. "Stupid Luffy, if you want to become a pirate, you can't run so slowly ahead." Yuta turned around and put his hands on his hips, stared at Luffy, and said loudly. At this time, Luffy's eyes were not looking at Yuta, but at the sea in the distance. "You, Yuta, behind. Quick, look behind you." "No, let's go." Within Luffy's eyes, a golden slashing figure was swiftly flying towards the port of Windmill Village. For a while, Luffy couldn't help being so frightened that his legs went weak, and he even hurriedly panicked. Seeing Luffy's panicked appearance, Yuta frowned slightly and gave Luffy an unhappy glance, because she knew that Luffy must not have listened carefully to what he said just now. However, since Luffy's panicked appearance was very real, Yuta also turned around. Immediately, the moment he turned around, Yuta saw the growing golden slash. "What?" Exclamations resounded throughout the Windmill Village. Inside the Makino Tavern, at this time, Shanks and the others who were still drinking suddenly threw the barrels of wine and rushed out of the tavern. "Yuta, 333, what happened?" "No, look at the sea. A slash is flying over." 99 what? "Damn." 39, where did this slash come from? Clang. Seeing the swift slash, the redhead suddenly pulled out his saber griffin. However, before Shanks could make a slash, Beckman stretched out his hand and pressed Shanks' shoulder. "Wait a minute." Hearing Beckman's voice, Shankston was slightly taken aback. However, out of trust in his own crew and self-confidence in his own strength, Shanks restrained his impulse. At this time, a golden slash came at a rapid speed, when it is about 100 meters away from the Windmill Village. Boom! Slash smashed. Its tyrannical power made the sea divide a long and deep ravine. In the Windmill Village, the villagers gathered after hearing the screams. There are also Yuta and Luffy who are the closest to the pier. At this time, these people are all dumbfounded. Look at the ravine that spreads to nowhere. Everyone looked horrified. Not only them, but even the people of the red-haired pirates had solemn expressions on their faces. Because of this slash is not only powerful, and that absolute control. 148. The strong fruit is in hand. The confrontation with the red-haired pirates, the golden slash, needless to say, is of course EC's slash. Back to this side of EC. When Dawn gradually saw the windmill village. Coincidentally, the pirate ship where the muscle pirates are located also appeared in front of the Dawn. While Dawn was sailing fast all the way, they finally ran into the muscle pirates in the waters near Windmill Village. Therefore, after confirming that it was the muscle pirates who went to the pirate ship, EC didn't let Brooke and the others take action, but turned into a sword with thunder and slashed a golden slash with one sword. The slash flew straight to the position of the muscle pirates. In an instant, Jeanju cut the pirate ship in half, and the rest of the pirate boat broke through the sea in the direction of Windmill Village. And this was the reason why Yuta and Luffy could see the golden slash coming at a high speed at the dock. Zizizi with the sound of the arc. EC's figure disappeared in a flash of lightning. Early in the morning, observation Haki locked the muscle pirates Captain Pope and the intelligence officer of the intelligence department. The figure appeared on the pirate ship in an instant, holding bow pie in the left hand, and the intelligence officer in the right hand, turned into thunder and lightning, and returned to the Dawn again. Hee, this little colleague from the intelligence department, come with us. Seeing EC's figure, Brooke walked up to pick up the intelligence personnel in EC's hands. I guess you haven't had a good rest on that pirate ship. Now, it's a good time to rest. Glancing at the intelligence officer who was taken away by Brooke, EC's eyes were placed on Popeye, the sailor in his hand. Your name, and your hobbies, but it's very similar to a character I'm familiar with. It's just that maybe you're not genuine, so your strength is really too much. Really, I thought I met a familiar character. Click after saying a few words with a slight sigh, EC directly twisted his neck. Until death. The captain of this muscle pirate group, Poppy, had a look of horror and doubt on his face. Terrified because of EC's formidable strength and the unstoppable slash. Doubt because EC said those incomprehensible words, which made him very confused. It's a pity that EC didn't have the slightest explanation until his death. In the end, EC broke his neck. As for EC, after killing this Pope, 2 golden lights appeared around him. The golden light flashed away in a burst of golden ripples and merged directly into Poppy's corpse. Soon, 2 groups of golden rays of light slowly flew out of Pope's body. Immediately afterwards, a golden devil fruit and a curse of devil fruit appeared in front of EC's eyes. The devil fruit cursed group was easily included in the king's treasure by EC. And at that moment, the devil fruit, which had been transformed into a noble phantasm, appeared with a light curtain. Noble phantasm, zhuang fruit. Type, active noble phantasm. Type, consuming noble phantasm liberation. After eating, strengthen your own body to the limit, so that your own physical strength enters an endless cycle of regeneration. After awakening, it can absorb the energy of the outside world and transform it into its own infinite physical strength without side effects. Looking at the information on the light curtain, EC's eyes flashed with surprise. Unexpectedly, the zhuang fruit was obtained by himself like this. As long as you eat it yourself, you will have a great reserve of physical strength in the future. Even if you develop the strong fruit to an awakened state, it can really be said that his physical strength is endless. The energy is not extinguished, and the physical strength is endless. At this point, EC did not hesitate at all, and even grabbed the strong fruit suspended in the air in his hand. He opened his mouth and ate this devil fruit without side effects into his stomach in a few mouthfuls. As soon as he ate it, EC could clearly sense the changes in his body. Among his limbs, wisps of powerful power began to emerge from countless places. These forces are continuously condensed in the body, and finally completely fixed at the heart. With the heart as the center, the power of the whole body is condensed here. Then, with the beating of the heart, the force condensed into a stream began to circulate continuously in the body of the meaning. At this moment, EC only felt that he was more fulfilled than ever. Not only is the body enriched, but even the spirit has become more tenacious. Zazizi, a ray of thunder, condensed in the palm of his hand. Looking down, I saw a black Leiwan floating in EC's palm. Raywan's breath is only a rough judgment, and it can be roughly understood that this Raywan can destroy a super-large warship in an instant. The dangerous aura made the hairs of Arthas stand up while collecting the corpse. Grabbing Poppy's body, Arthas hurriedly threw it into the sea away from EC's side. As for EC, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. You can condense this level of thunder just by thinking about it. Moreover, the physical strength in his body does not seem to be consumed. There is no such thing as the previous situation where the level of physical exertion can be clearly perceived. In the past, EC's physical strength seemed to be quantitative. If he keeps fighting, EC can always feel the decrease in his physical strength. And now, EC's physical strength, in addition to quantitative, also has the existence of supplementary. Even if it consumes a certain amount of physical strength, it can be replenished quickly. War of attrition. EC dissipated Le Maru in his own momentum and smiled lightly. Looking at the sunken pirate ship, EC held on to the railing of the bow and waited quietly for the dawn to arrive at Windmill Village. On this side, it dissipated with the golden slash. The huge and gorgeous hull of the Dawn gradually entered the eyes of everyone in the Windmill Village. When the Dawn, was docked at the pier, a slight comparison with the Red Foss on one side could clearly distinguish the poor appearance of the Red Foss. What a huge ship! In the future, I will definitely use such a big ship as my pirate ship. Looking at Dawn, Luffy was first shocked, and then he clenched his fist to give himself the atmosphere. Bang, hearing this, Yuta hit Luffy's head in a circle. Idiot, such a big ship needs a lot of people to sail. Also, now we should go back first. After speaking, Yuta grabbed Luffy's ear and ran back behind Shanks and the others. Tread ya, Tada Tao. With the sound of footsteps, EC, Monet, Robin, and the swordsman team slowly walked down the stairs of the ship. At this time, Shanks was holding down the straw hat on his head and holding his saber griffin in his right hand. This little brother, you just scared us 149 fighting against the red-haired Shanks. The battle of the great swordsman. Hearing this, EC's eyes narrowed slightly. Although I guessed that I would meet the red-haired pirates in the Windmill Village. However, after seeing the red-haired pirates for real now, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly, as expected of the existence known as the Iron Wall Pirates. In EC's perception, Shank's strength was hidden but gave him a strong sense of danger. Although the Deputy Captain Beckman on the side was very calm, EC could still sense that he was a little weaker than himself. As for the others, in EC's perception, each of them can be on their own, and their auras are all the same. As expected of the elite group among the many pirate groups. The number is small, but the average strength is high. Hey, I can't scare you with my little strength, Redhead Shanks. It's really scary I met you here. Hearing EC's words, Shanks' face darkened slightly. Your tone reminds me of a Marine I'm very upset about. Hearing EC's deliberately joking familiar tone, Shanks couldn't help but think of a certain Marine who was extremely wretched. The guy who switched places with one shot came and went with his own fruit ability and jumped repeatedly. Hearing this, EC was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that Paulsolino would make Shank's memory so clear. However, after a slight flash of thought in his mind, he understood. Paulsolino is not yet an admiral, and he is still working diligently, so it is normal to receive tasks against the Red Hair Pirates. Moreover, with his character, he would definitely not fight recklessly with the red-haired pirates, so it was definitely a nasty harassment. So, it's normal for Shanks to be upset with Paulsolino. Touching his chin, EC looked at Shanks and said, Well, it looks like you're very upset with Marine's Paulsolino. However, what does it mean that you have your saber in your hand and your crew are all ready for battle? 35 with EC's flexible head. He quickly understood what was going on according to the situation at the scene. It's just that EC doesn't want to fight Shanks now. After all, this is the Windmill Village Wharf, and it would be bad if it hurts the Windmill Village. You just scare my baby girl. Hearing this, Shanks looked into EC's eyes and said directly, "You know, I'm a pirate. 99, if you scare me myself, I'm not a big deal. However, what you have just frightened is my person, and that is tantamount to offending me. 5, if I don't start, that's not my style." Listening to Shanks' words, EC's eyes narrowed slightly. Tisk, it's very similar to Roger's style. Hearing this, a cold light flashed in Shanks' eyes. "Your words make me very uncomfortable." Swish! Griffin swung out violently, and a black slash flew straight towards the position where EC and the others were. Hum! At the same time, the tyrannical Conqueror's Haki burst out. Under Shanks' control, the Conqueror's Haki on his body pressed straight towards where EC and the others were. Seeing this, EC shook his right hand. Zazizi, I saw that lightning arcs appeared in EC's right hand. In the blink of an eye, a sword of thunder appeared in EC's palm. Hum! The Golden Conqueror's Haki erupts. The next moment, the red, black, and Golden Conqueror's Haki slammed together. Stab, stab between the two. Dense arcs constantly appear and disappear in the air. Above the sky, thick clouds were constantly surging towards both sides. The two were deliberately controlling in this Conqueror's Haki duel. Therefore, the surrounding villagers can stay awake. However, after seeing such an exaggerated scene, these villagers also open their mouths one after another. Really powerful talent. Looking at Conqueror's Haki who was standing against him, Shanks couldn't help but whisper goodbye. Although he didn't use all Conqueror's Haki, even if he used this level of Conqueror's Haki, he could compete with himself. In addition, Shanks knew about the previous newspapers, so he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Besides Shanks, Beckman and the rest of the red-haired pirates looked at this scene with a solemn expression. They never imagined that such a young prince of the kingdom would have such strength. On the other side, EC was approaching after Shanks' beheading. The sword of thunder in his hand suddenly made an upward slash from the bottom up. Dang! Boom! Zhan Zhuzhan made a crashing sound on EC's thundersword. Then, on EC's top and bottom, a flashing arc slash escaped from EC's thundersword, carrying Shanks' slash. The two flew directly into the sky. Boom! 2 slashes entangled and flew high into the sky. In a roar, the chop shattered. The powerful sword key made the clouds that were constantly rolling around shattered. For a time, the sky above the Windmill Village was cloudless. Hoo-hoo-hoo above the sky, the wind raged, making a whistling sound. At the pier of Windmill Village, at this time, Shanks and EC were silently staring at each other. The right hand of the two people is holding their own weapons at this time. Moreover, at this moment, silently, the purple-black armed color Haki covered the arms and weapons of the two. The purple-black airflow completely covered the two weapons, making the weapons themselves more dazzling. The rest of the people around the two could feel the cold light that seemed to break open their skin. A gust of wind blew from the sky. The strong wind blew across the earth, causing the fallen leaves on the ground to fly. Whizzing. The next moment, Shanks in front of Beckman and others, and EC in front of Monet and others disappeared at the same time. Clang! The two swords covered in the rich armed color Haki collided. Ding, ding, ding. Swords clashed. Shanks and EC looked at each other. The figure flickered. The sword, light and sword shadow, accompanied by one after another lingering sword energy. The two sides officially entered the state of kendo fighting. Clang! Ding, ding, ding. SHHH. Accompanied by the two very fast counterattacks. The sound of swords clashing and the clanging of swords is continuous. Not only that, when the two were at war, there are also small and extremely tough sword ki constantly scattered and sputtered. As a last resort, everyone watching the battle can only retreat again and again. In the whole pier, in the end, only EC and Shanks remained at war. 150C Conquerors winding again ding when the two swords clashed again. Shanks' eyes flickered, and he was completely convinced that the person in front of him was the one who killed Golden Lion Shiki. Although it has been reported in the newspapers before, Shanks still has some skeptical attitude. Now, in the battle with EC, Shanks is completely convinced that EC really has the strength to kill the Golden Lion Shiki. Little brother, I have to be serious. If you are not careful, you will die. Dash, the swords clashed, and a trace of sparks continued to emerge. Shanks looked into EC's eyes through the gap between the swords and said, hearing this, the corners of EC's mouth twitched slightly. I can't ask for it. Hearing EC's words, Shanks' eyes also flashed a hint of displeasure. Clang! The two sides shook each other away. Then, Shanks' figure moved instantly. The whole person completely turned into a phantom and suddenly disappeared in the eyes of everyone. And this is just the perspective of those who are not strong enough. In the eyes of EC, Beckman, and others, Shanks slammed his left foot to the ground. After that, the seemingly simple pause seemed to channel all the power into the ground. In an instant, the hundreds of meters of ground centered on Shanks trembled slightly, and Shanks also used a powerful force, all condensed at one point, and then accelerated instantly with the help of this force. And this also caused Shanks' figure to seem to be teleporting, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Ding! Zizizi! At this moment, EC's thunder sword slashed horizontally to the right. With a crisp sound, the two swords wrapped around the armed Haki slammed into each other fiercely. Where the swords clashed, there seemed to be an invisible tremor buzzing. Countless sparks flashed continuously and then quickly disappeared. Circles of invisible air ripples continued to spread around with the two at the center. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Shanks' expression did not change. However, the attack speed in his hand suddenly accelerated a lot. Ding, 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 ding. Griffin's blade turned into a shadow that filled the sky and shrouded EC. The speed of Yijianjian was extremely fast. At this moment, in the eyes of the others, it seemed that they had seen countless Shanks attacking. There was a rapid collision sound, as if countless ice shards shattered. The tyrannical armed color Haki makes the swords of both sides extremely hard. This one is like the ice shattered and stirred up in the air. The swords of the two are like two tornadoes rolled up. With the two at the center, the strong and fierce confrontation led to a strong convection. The pinnacle of swordsmanship, the most powerful two-color Haki. While fighting, Shanks kept analyzing EC in his heart. And that hidden breath, the great swordsman who created his own path of kendo. After another collision, suddenly, the momentum of Shanks slammed aside. The incomparably domineering aura burst out, and then wrapped around his body instantly, even wrapped around the griffin in his hand. And this is only what happened in a short moment. However, under the perception of EC's top observation Haki, Shanks' change was immediately felt by EC. Conqueror's Haki twist, a dignified light flashed through his eyes, and EC instantly judged it. EC had seen the power of Conqueror's Haki entanglement before against Golden Lion Shiki. EC is also greedy for the power of Conqueror's Haki. However, because its own Conqueror's Haki did not reach the top level. Wanting Master Conqueror's Haki winding skills can be described as clueless. Now, after feeling the change of Shanks, EC's whole body suddenly burst into a sound of lightning and thunder. The previous battle between the two has always been a competition between swordsmanship and two-color Haki. Well, after now Shanks used Conqueror's Haki twist to start. Everything has changed. The two masters are very good at fighting range and strength, and they have not caused any huge changes to the Windmill Village. Buzzing. At this moment, the air around Shanks seemed to be stagnant. The tyrannical Conqueror's Haki wrapped around the famous knife griffin, making it humming continuously. Zizizi. On the other side, EC's body was constantly jumping with high-intensity arcs. The sword of thunder in his hand also became more and more solid at this moment. Is that Thunderbolt? Sri Lanka 1. 4 Flower 0 in the Windmill Village, Luffy, who was well protected by Beckman and the others, suddenly exclaimed. Aside, Yuta did not speak, and a pair of eyes kept wandering between Shanks and EC. As for EC, Yuta has completely recognized it just now. After all, Yuta had seen the news that Morgans didn't want money at that time. Especially after learning that EC is about the same age as her. Yuta has always been interested in EC. However, because it has never been seen before, although Yuta was interested, he could only follow the fate. However, what Yuta did not expect was, today, in this situation, I will really recognize the genius prince in this newspaper. In this, the crew members of the Red Hair Pirates also whispered. Are the little devils so scary now? I remember that this prince was about the same age as Yuta. This kind of powerful force, except for the captain, we all have to die when we meet. Although what you said is very unpleasant, you are indeed telling the truth. Alas, I feel like I've lived on a dog all these years. Okay, don't sigh about some nonsense here. 5. All cheer me up, be careful in a moment, and be sure to stop their aftermath. Rest assured, Beckman, intercept the aftermath. We are professional. That's right. Every time boss fights Hawkeye, we wipe their ass. Hey, can you be so vulgar about wiping your butt? Yuta is still here. Bastard, I'm a pirate. What's wrong with speaking vulgarly? Besides, you are pretending to be arrogant with me now? As long as you don't bring bad Yuta, who cares what you say? Humph. Yuta has an unreliable father like the eldest. Do you need me to bring it down? 39 behind the members of the red-haired pirates. Yuta listened to these people's increasingly incoherent words, and a few black lines could not help but appear on his forehead. Shut up for me. A kick on the calf of the nearest pirate. Yuta's eyes stared fiercely at the members of the red-haired pirates in front of him. Not only that, Beckman, who had been standing at the front, also turned his head and glanced. Immediately, the few smug pirates seemed to sense Beckman's gaze and closed their mouths one after another. 151, the end of the competition. EC's action to the newsbird at the dock. At this time, Shanks and EC only had each other's eyes in their eyes. The Conqueror's Haki in his hand is constantly condensing with the power of thunder. The surrounding air became extremely stagnant at this moment, and even the light wind could not fly through this area. The fallen leaves that were originally flying stayed in the air at this moment. In the next moment, the two figures disappeared in place. Boom, boom. Under the feet of the two of them, a deep pothole appeared. The torn-apart ground revealed the tyrannical strength of the two of them. Boom! Different from the previous crash. This time, in the horrified eyes of everyone. The two weapons did not touch each other. Shank's saber, Griffin's sword, is wrapped in an invisible Conqueror's Haki, as if it were substance. And EC's Thunder 333 sword has endless arcs jumping on it. The two slashed each other horizontally, and the swords wrapped around Conqueror's Haki and the endless thunder collided fiercely. Because the sword did not actually hit it, there was no crisp sound from the collision this time. Instead, the energies of the two collided with each other, resulting in a muffled sound similar to an explosion. Zizizi. Small strands of lightning flashed out around the two of them. Wherever he passed, the ground cracked and the sea began to pour in. Bump! Finally, when the two sensed that the dock was gradually overwhelmed, they looked at each other and were shocked. I saw that the attack of the two broke out in an instant at this moment. The wind howled, the sea roared. Here, in the smog that filled the sky, Shanks and EC both retreated from each other under the shock. By the time the smoke cleared, Shanks had once again stood in front of the red hair pirates. EC, on the other hand, returned to the front of Monet and others. Get to know me again. My name is Shanks, and I'm a pirate. Reinsert your favorite knife, the Griffin. Shanks couldn't help but hold his straw hat and said. Hearing this, EC also scattered the thunder sword in his hand. EC, Prince of the Kingdom of Helios, please advise me. The strong strength of the two sides made the two of them only shake hands and make peace. One is that he doesn't want to implicate Luffy's hometown because of his own fighting. One is that he doesn't want to get Garp and Marine's attention because of his fights. Therefore, after the competition, the two chose to shake hands and make peace with each other very tacitly. Although EC doesn't like pirates, in this case, he can only choose this way. After all, strength is the right to speak, and this is the truth of the pirate world. Okay, brothers, go back to the pub and continue drinking. Glancing at EC, Shanks turned around and headed for the tavern. Behind him, Beckman took a deep breath and glanced at EC seriously, as if to keep EC in his heart. Then, he followed Shanks without saying a word. In response, the red-haired pirates shrugged their shoulders and turned away. Seeing the scene, the residents of Windmill Village couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Shanks and EC's battle just now, although the damage is not very serious. However, this still makes them very frightened. However, after finding out that the battle was finally over, the residents really relaxed. At the pier, watching the departure of the red hair pirates and others, EC first glanced at the news bird hidden in the clouds, and then instructed Monet and others. Let's go and replenish the supplies first, and then go to the tavern to have a good drink. Don't worry about the red hair pirates. Hearing this, Monet and the others nodded lightly. Okay, Your Highness. Afterwards, Monet, Robin, Brooke, and other members of the swordsman squad all left here in 2s and 3s. Everyone started to replenish the supplies on the ship according to the previously assigned work. Watching everyone leave, EC's figure turned into a flash of thunder at this moment. And Yuta and Luffy, who were planning to come over to talk to EC, seeing EC disappearing, he was taken aback for a moment. Hey, he turned into a thunderbolt and flew away. Luffy's loud voice made him shout after seeing EC disappear. On the side, Yuta's face darkened slightly. He glanced at Luffy, turned, and left the tavern. Hey, Yuta, wait for me. Seeing Yuta leaving, Luffy hurriedly chased after him. On this side, EC incarnated as a thunderbolt and disappeared directly above the pier. Above the sky, the news bird, which had been hidden in a thick cloud, was suddenly covered in hair. As if feeling some kind of danger, he flapped his wings, desperately trying to get out of here. However, with a burst of sizzling arc sounded, EC's figure appeared in front of the newsbird. Gah! Exclamations came from the newsbird's mouth. The sudden appearance of EC and the surrounding arcs made this newsbird terrified. One ugly sound. Reaching out his hand to cover Woo Woo's ears, EC's forehead could not help showing a few black lines. Unexpectedly, the sound of the newsbird was so unpleasant. Seeing this newsbird open its mouth to call again, EC hurriedly reached out and grabbed its neck. Without the slightest nonsense, EC threw it directly into the treasure of the king. As a noble phantasm embryo broke through the golden ocean, the newsbird also began to transform into a life noble phantasm at this moment. On the other side, at the wharf of Windmill Village, as the red-haired pirates returned to the tavern, Monet and others entered the village to replenish supplies, and the residents dispersed one after another. Soon, there was only an old man in a round hat and colorful clothes standing at the dock. I originally thought that nothing would happen to this pirate group, but now it's 1.0 and just fights without saying a word. 99. Ignore Windmill Village and the villagers at all. No, I have to tell Garp. While speaking, the head of the Windmill Village, Slap, took out a phone bug from his arms. As Garp's childhood friend and now the mayor of Windmill Village, Slap has a phone bug that Garp deliberately left behind. Blue, blue, blue with the sound of the phone bug rang. At this time, in the Grand Line Naval Headquarters Marine Ford Marine Conference Room, the conference room that had only the voice of the Warring States period suddenly heard the sound of a phone bug. Immediately, Sengoku's face sank, and his sharp eyes looked at Garp, who was sleeping and snoring beside him. The rest of the Marine Conference Room also silently looked at where Garp was. 152 Garp returns from Grand Line in a hurry. East Blue Garp, looking at Garp, who was still asleep when the phone bug rang. The unbearable Warring States suddenly glowed with golden light. You old thing, I have endured you for a long time. Boom! The golden fist hit Garp's head hard. It was said that you can't bring phone bugs in today's meeting, but you even brought them in without authorization. 35 die me. Bang. 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 Using both fists together, the Warring States period at this time directly transformed into a Buddha. Two terrifying fists hammered Garp's head incessantly. Inside the Marine meeting room, when the others saw this scene, their cheeks twitched unconsciously. All Mr. Sengoku is really scary, these two fists. If it were me, they should be gone Paul Salino who was originally trimming his nails, couldn't help but speak after seeing this scene. Ah, only Mr. Garp can resist. 99 aside, Kazan touched his head and agreed. Sleeping in a meeting is undisciplined. Sakazuki, who was sitting between the two, snorted coldly. Ah, Sakazuki, 22. Don't say it like this, maybe. Garp-san is a little sleepy because of too many tasks. Hearing Sakazuki's words, Paul Celino pouted and took it. Listening to Paul Celino's completely thought-through words, Sakazuki couldn't help but glance at Paul Celino. However, in the end, Sakazuki didn't say anything, just sat in his seat with his arms folded and watched Sengoku beat Garp. Boom! Finally, in the midst of endless beatings, Garp was punched under the floor by Sengoku. The head pierced the floor, the ceiling, and the eyes of the lower layer. And the marine housemen who were working on the lower layer couldn't help but look up. Looking at Garp's head piercing the ceiling, many of the internal soldiers were shocked. Hateful, with his head stuck to the ceiling, Garp also saw the expressions on the faces of the house soldiers. For a moment, Garp couldn't help holding back his old face, and suddenly pulled out his head. Looking at the Sengoku that has been restored to its original state, Garp raised his fist and wanted to rush over to fight. However, before Garp could make a move, Crane stretched out a hand and pressed it lightly on Garp's body. Suddenly, in the eyes of everyone in the Marine conference room, Garp's entire body instantly turned into a flat garment. Xiaoha, what are you doing? Garp, who turned into clothes, immediately shouted loudly after discovering his state. Hearing this, the Crane directly removed his ability and said, Garp, can you be serious? It's okay to take a phone bug and sleep in a meeting. Why don't you answer the phone when you wake up? 55. Hearing Crane's words, Garp immediately touched his head. Aha! Isn't that all of a sudden? While speaking, Garp took out the phone bug from his arms and connected it. Garp. On the other end of the phone bug, Upslap cursed when he saw Garp, who took so long to answer the phone. Bastard Garp, you know how to answer the phone. Why did it take so long to answer the phone? Hearing the figure of Upslap, Garp suddenly lost his previous state. Upslap? Did something happen to Windmill Village? Garp knew very well that his childhood playmate would definitely not call him if there was no major event. Well, there was a fight at the Windmill Village wharf today. Hearing Garp's words, Upslap didn't care why Garp just answered the phone and hurriedly told what happened just now. A red-haired pirate named Shanks and a prince of the kingdom of Helios named EC fought on the dock. Good guy, the sky seems to be cracked. I'm afraid that something else will happen by then, so I'm calling you. You're a marine hero. Come back and deal with this. As soon as Upslap's words came out, the expressions of everyone in the marine conference room suddenly changed. Which of all the people present is not smart, plus the extremely quiet conference room now. Even if you don't want to eavesdrop, you can still hear it in such a quiet environment. At this time, after Upslap's words fell, everyone present changed their expressions. Boom! He smashed the table in front of him with one punch, and Garp turned around and walked towards the door of the conference room. Don't act rashly. Neither you nor the people of the village. I'll go back to East Blue now. Click. After finishing speaking, Garp hung up the phone directly, and his steps quickened. Garp, seeing this, the Warring States just wanted to say something. But the door had been opened by Garp, and Garp left the conference room straight away. Mr. Warring States, let me go with you. Seeing this scene, Kazan immediately stood up. He said to the Warring States, and hurriedly followed. Seeing the figures of Garp and Kazan leaving, everyone's faces were a little solemn. The previous information said that the Red Hair pirates had returned, and I thought it was returning to the hometown of Red Hair, but I didn't expect to go to Garp's hometown. 333, he folded his hands and pondered for a while before speaking. Hearing this, Sengoku pulled out a document from the intelligence documents on the table. Redheads are known in East Blue, world government. Before the meeting, the world government had already sent the information. And not too long ago, the Red Hair robbed a ship carrying valuables from the world government. 5. It's just that the world government thought that the Redhead had already run away after robbing it. I didn't expect to stay in East Blue. Hearing the words of the Warring States period, light flashed in the Crane's eyes. However, no matter what he thought of, the crane was no longer in the mood to speak. At this time, the Marine conference room also became a little dull. East blue, windmill village above the sky. At this moment, next to EC, a news bird with golden feathers was flapping its wings and circling up and down around EC. EC looked at the news bird whose feathers had turned golden in front of him and couldn't help but reach out and touch his chin. Return to the way it was before. As EC's words fell, the flying news bird immediately began to restrain its golden feathers. Gradually, the golden feathers began to lose their luster, and then wisps of white light began to cover them. In the end, the news bird regained its former white feather appearance. 153. EC exposes Luffy's life experience. Shanks is surprised quack. The news bird, who had changed back to the original one, raised his head and quacked twice. In response, EC slapped the fan directly and swiped the news bird's fan. "It's too ugly. You have to call again." With a look of disgust on his face, EC looked at the news bird who had regained his shape and continued to speak. "Next, listen carefully. What you just photographed, hand over to Morgan's as usual. 35. Also, don't expose it when you go back. It's still the same as before. 995, do what you have to do. However, in the meantime, you need to confirm where Morgan's is staying and where the World Economic News is headquartered. I'll contact you in a while, so you'd better check these two locations during this time." Hearing this, the news bird quickly nodded his head. Originally wanted to call out twice, but after seeing EC's raised palm, the news bird could only forcefully suppress the behavior that he wanted to call out. Seeing this, EC nodded his head, very satisfied. Randomly waved at the news bird. EC drove the news bird away. Afterwards, EC returned to the pier again. Glancing at the calm dawn, EC walked towards the tavern. "When I came to Windmill Village, it would be a pity not to meet the gentle proprietress of Windmill Village in the original book. Therefore, EC is now walking towards the location of the tavern in Windmill Village. Come on, have another drink. 99. Ha, Lucky Roo, you lost. Get out your hidden pistol legs. 55, that's right. Hurry up and contribute it all. I'm tired of just drinking. I need to eat meat now. That's right. Eat meat. 5, Master Chef. Contribute your pistol legs. Ha. 35, walking into the tavern, you can clearly hear the loud noise. Crunch pushing open the tavern door. EC's figure also appeared in the tavern with the sound of pushing the door. Immediately, the bustling tavern became much quieter after seeing EC's figure. On the bar, Shanks also saw EC. Hey, do you want to come over for a drink?" The wine bottle in his hand was lifted and shaken at EC. "No, I'm not interested in pirates." Shaking his head, EC refused directly with a calm expression on his face. Hearing this, Shanks could not help but sigh. Alas, sure enough, you don't like pirates. 35, thinking of the information on EC he had collected before, Shanks could only put down the wine bottle in his hand. For some information about EC, the red-haired pirates still collected it. However, Shanks thought it was a simple pirate who offended EC. Now it seems that EC himself does not like the group of pirates. In this regard, EC did not care about Shanks' thoughts. Glancing at the members of the red-haired pirates who were sitting in their seats drinking wine, EC walked to the bar nonchalantly, found a high stool, and sat up straight. One hand rested on the bar to support his chin, and the other pointed to the wine cabinet behind Makino. "Please bring me a cappuccino. It's your specialty wine." Seeing EC's appearance, Makino couldn't help covering his mouth and laughing twice. "Hee, little brother is really cute, but children can't drink alcohol." Hearing this, EC rolled his eyes at Makino. "I'm no ordinary kid." After speaking, EC waved to the wine cabinet behind Makino. Suddenly, a bottle of wine with the windmill logo slowly flew out from the wine cabinet. Seeing this scene, Makino was shocked. He wanted to reach out and pull the bottle off, but the bottle came directly to EC with a bang. "What's going on? How did my wine fly past?" 39, EC smiled lightly and didn't answer, but plunged his left hand into the golden air ripples. Then, a crystal cup was taken out by EC. Pull out the wine cork, and with the sound of rushing water, wisps of wine poured into the crystal glass. "Sigwai. So cool. while EC was tasting the unique wine of Windmill Village. On the side, an exclamation sounded quickly. I want to drink too. I want to drink too. With the sound of footsteps, Luffy's figure appeared beside EC. Standing next to EC, Luffy looked at the drink in the crystal glass with a strong look of envy. He even jumped up and down after seeing EC drank the drink in the crystal glass in one breath. Give me a drink, give me a drink. I want it too. I want it too. I'm the man who wants to become One Piece. How can I not drink? I want to drink too. 35. Why you can drink, I can't. I want to drink too. I want to drink too. 99. Luffy jumping up and down around EC. After seeing EC finish another drink, I was suddenly unhappy. He has already started to climb EC's clothes. Seeing this, EC frowned slightly. The body was shaken, and Luffy flew out directly and flew straight into the arms of Shanks. Glancing at Luffy and Shanks, EC couldn't help but smile. Shanks, this little one, you were leading the way of the pirates. Turning the crystal cup in his hand slightly, EC said softly, "You know who this little guy is?" Hearing this, Shanks couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. On the side, Beckman, who was closest to the bar, also turned around and looked over with some doubts. Marine hero Monkey D. Garp's grandson would be led into the path of the pirates. 35, you said. What if the marine hero knew? Hearing EC's words, both Shanks and Beckman's pupils shrank suddenly. You and I got into a fight at the Windmill Wharf. Do you think the marine hero, got any news? 35, TSK. Oh, by the way, forgot to mention, you should have heard of this little daddy, Monkey D. Long. As EC's words gradually fell, Shanks and Beckman both looked at Luffy, who was sitting on the body of Shanks drinking wine with a series of grins. On the other hand, EC, with the corners of his mouth slightly lifted, opened his mouth again and said jokingly, "Oh, I almost forgot, this little guy has a very good uncle hidden. My name, I think it's called Monkey D. Kizaru TSK, this family. One is the Marine hero, the other is the Revolutionary Army leader, Point 35, and this one-line, single-line biography was led to the road of pirates by you. TSK, you are amazing." After speaking, EC drank the drink in the crystal glass in one gulp. He stood up and walked outside the pub. "Ms. Makino, the wine in Windmill Village is very good. I look forward to seeing you next time." 154. The brief contact between EC and Yuta. Obviously, the wine is good. Why are you looking forward to seeing me next time? Looking at the back of EC leaving, Makino was slightly taken aback. At this time, Shanks and Beckman ignored EC's departure. Both of them stared blankly at Luffy, who was secretly drinking. "Luffy, tell me what your grandfather's name is." A hand was placed on Luffy's head, and Shanks' face moved up to ask Luffy. Hearing Shanks asking about his grandfather, Luffy was shocked. At this moment, it was as if a figure of incomparable arrogance appeared beside him. Suddenly, the drink that had been in his mouth was swallowed by himself. In an instant, the flow of a large mass of wine directly caused Luffy to cough. Cough, 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 cough. Looking at Luffy, who was choked and coughing constantly, Shanks couldn't help but feel a little helpless. At this time, Makino on the side smiled slightly after hearing Shanks' words. Does Mr. Shanks want to know who Luffy's grandfather is? Anyone in the village knows this, because Luffy's grandpa is so famous. He's Marine's hero. Speaking of which, Mr. Shanks, you are still a pirate. 333. If you meet Luffy's grandfather, be careful. Hearing Makino's words, Shanks' face suddenly froze. Not only that, even Beckman, who had been smoking silently and not speaking, was slightly stunned at this time. Unexpectedly, a kid fooled by his own captain turned out to be the grandson of Marine hero Garp. So, everything that the Prince of Helios Kingdom said just now is true. Thinking of this, Beckman couldn't help but jump slightly. Shanks. 9. Standing up, Beckman patted Shanks on the shoulder. In this regard, Shanks responded lightly. Looks like we're leaving early. Reaching out his hand to hold the straw hat on his head, Shanks looked at Luffy, who was still coughing, and said helplessly, "Speaking of which, this time, the task arranged by Captain Roger was a complete mess. P.S. The following is a personal speculation. It is also considered a second design, and it is regarded as a new setting of the same person. The reason why Shanks went to snatch world government's ship in East Blue, it is because that one has this special fruit on it. And that special fruit was prepared by Kba, Shanks for Captain Roger's son. Roger had explained to Shanks at that time before. Roger is very aware of Shanks' potential, so he explained something to Shanks early. And Shanks did not live up to Roger's expectations. He was powerful, and he even got the devil fruit. It's just that people are not as good as heaven, and that special devil fruit will be eaten by Luffy. At that time, Shanks really didn't know that Luffy was Garp's grandson. After all, there aren't that many people in the village who would specifically publicize Luffy's identity. Therefore, the familiar shadow of Captain Roger that I saw on Luffy at that time. Shanks led Luffy down the path of a pirate. But now, after knowing Luffy's identity, Shanks also made up his mind again in a short period of time. However, there's one thing EC said is quite right. The one at the Windmill Village Wharf, I am afraid it has already reached Garp. That said, Garp is definitely on its way back to East Blue now. Thinking of this, Shanks couldn't help but look at Luffy. He picked up the straw hat with one hand and put heavily on Luffy's head. Shanks said solemnly, "Luffy, for some reason, we have to leave first. 35, grow up as soon as possible. Then make yourself a real man. I will wait for you above the sea. Luffy, this straw hat is the promise you made with me." Hearing this, Luffy resisted the urge to cough and laughed loudly at Shanks. "Shanks, don't worry. I will definitely honor the promise. Cough, cough, I am cough, cough, and want to become One Piece cough, cough, the man." EC didn't know what happened after that in the tavern, because EC was stopped by Yuta, who came out shortly after leaving the tavern. Hey, looking at the figure in front of him that was taller than himself, Yuta couldn't help but let out a cry. "I have a name." Hearing this, EC turned around and rolled his eyes at Yuta. "However, since you are a lovely girl, I will forgive your disrespect." Listening to EC's words, Yuta's little face puffed up and muttered softly, "It's amazing that you think you're a prince. And forgive my disrespect." Reaching out his hands, EC gently squeezed Yuta's face on both sides and gently pulled towards both sides with slight force. "Sorry, it's amazing that I'm a prince. Tell me, what do you have to do with me? You know, I know that you belong to the Red Hair Pirates. Shanks got into a fight with me because of you." EC's tender face was flattened and rounded by EC. Yuta wanted to resist, but she had no strength at all. In the end, he could only roll his eyes at EC on EC's magic hand. You are too embarrassed to bully me as a girl." Mouth moved, Yuta first complained unwillingly. Then, Yuta looked into EC's eyes seriously and asked, "I just want to know why you're about my age, and yet you can be so powerful." 35. Shanks is the most powerful person I've ever met, but you can tie Shanks. So I want to know why. I also want to be so strong. Looking at Yuta's serious eyes, EC smiled lightly. "It is useless to tell you this, because I am strong and cannot be copied. 5. Although I don't know what the reason is for you. However, I can tell you very clearly that my power cannot be copied." Before EC crossed, the new character Yuta just appeared on the internet. So, to be honest, EC doesn't know much about Yuta, although I don't know why Yuta pursues strength so much. However, what EC said was indeed true. "In your body, I feel the power of the devil fruit." 35. If you develop it well, maybe you'll be able to master the mighty power of Master. There is no limit to the development of devil fruits. Of course, if you want to become stronger, I don't mind if you come to Helios to find me. It's just that at that time, becoming stronger means paying a price. Squeezing Yuta's face again, EC got up and left. On the spot, Yuta stood there quietly, clutching her red face that was pinched. It was not until EC's figure disappeared completely that Yuta entered the tavern again. 155. The information of the historical text. The news spread all over the sea again back at dawn. EC found that Monet and others had all returned. I stayed in the tavern for a while and didn't see Monet and others, so EC guessed it. Therefore, EC left the tavern after revealing Luffy's identity to the red hair in a wicked way. although the purpose of this visit is to extract the devil fruit from Luffy's body. However, because Shanks was there, someone must have notified Garp. So, EC didn't plan to pull out Luffy's devil fruit right now. However, before leaving East Blue, EC will definitely visit Windmill Village again. Not for anything else, but for the devil fruit that runs through the entire original work. EC is very interested in rubber fruit. Your Highness, just when EC was thinking about the time to come to Windmill Village again, Robin's figure slowly walked to EC's side. Is something wrong? Robin. Looking at Robin, who looked a little excited, EC couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. His Royal Highness, there is news of the historical text. Hearing EC's question, Robin said excitedly, just now, the information came from the historical text, which is suspected to be in the treasury of the Lock Kingdom on the Grand Line. Hearing this, EC's brows couldn't help but lift slightly. Where did this news come from? In response, Robin quickly took out the piece of information and handed it to EC. The news comes from an intelligence officer lurking in the Big Mom Pirates. That intelligence agent has been lurking in the Big Mom Pirates. This time, Charlotte Snugger, one of the 4 desert stars, was followed by the intelligence agent to return to the first half of the Grand Line. 99. Finally, I received this mission when I was about to reach the Kingdom of Lock. After EC heard it, his eyes lit up. I didn't expect that there was even the participation of the Big Mom Pirates. It seems that the historical text stone tablet should be confirmed without a doubt. After all, the information of the Big Mom Pirates is still very strong. To say that above this sea, there are many levels of intelligence organizations. However, there are only a few really powerful intelligence networks. Among them, there is an intelligence organization established by the Big Mom Pirates. It seems that there is indeed a historical text stone tablet there. Go on, let's set sail. Hearing this, Robin nodded immediately, turned, and walked quickly to look for Akatsuki. EC, on the other hand, glanced at the Windmill Village again, and then turned around and returned to the boat. Soon, among the exclamations of the villagers in Windmill Village, under the control of Akatsuki, Dawn slowly flew high into the sky and eventually disappeared from everyone's sight. Shanks and others who had just walked out of the tavern also found the Dawn that had already left. In this regard, Shanks didn't say much, just waved his hand, and the members of the Red Hair Pirates boarded the ship one after another. Then, after Shanks took Yuta and said goodbye to Luffy, he boarded the Red Foss and left Windmill Village slowly. Because of the butterfly EC, Shanks' broken arm did not happen to Luffy's ambition in the offshore Windmill Village. However, Luffy was still in the process of developing the world and decided to go the way of the pirate. It's a pity that Luffy doesn't know that this time he will have fewer partners. The next day, a large number of newsbirds flew towards the sea one after another. The battle between EC and Shanks in East Blue also made the headlines of today's newspapers. Grand Line, Westsky, Ollie Kingdom ruins, Krigana Island. Today, it is the residence of the New World's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye Mihawk. Today, the 7 warlords of the sea system has not yet been implemented, so Mihawk has not yet become the 7 warlords of the sea. However, due to the fact that he has challenged Kendo powerhouses everywhere before and has never failed. As early as 2 years ago, Mihawk was gradually called by other swordsmen as the New World's largest swordsman, and at that time, EC had not yet gone to sea. At this time, in a castle on Krigana Island, Mihawk, with short black hair and eagle-sharp yellow eyes, was reading today's newspaper. On the front page of a newspaper, a bold line of headlines stands out. Shocked, Shanks, the powerhouse of the New World, fought against Prince EC who killed the Golden Lion. No winner. Under the title, the dense text describes some battle scenes. Not only that, but there are plenty of clear photos on both sides of the text. Mihawk read the news on the front page little by little, and even took a serious look at the clear photos. Asked for Flower Zero in the end, Mihawk slowly put down the newspaper in his hand after reading it. He picked up the red wine on the table and took a sip. Then, Mihawk picked up the phone beside him and dialed a number. Blue, 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 click soon. The phone worm was connected, and a slightly smiling voice came out. Haha, I knew you were going to call me. So I stayed by the phone bug early in the morning. 5, I really did it right. Mihawk ha ha ha, hearing the voice of the phone bug. Mihawk couldn't help shaking the red wine glass in his hand. Shanks, what the papers say. Is it true? On the other end of the phone bug, Shanks, who was still laughing, slowly calmed down. With a slight sigh, Shanks answered, although I don't want to admit it, that person's swordsmanship is indeed very powerful. Even his own strength will not be lower than mine. The most important thing is that I can clearly feel that he has walked out of his own way of kendo. It's a pity because the location of the battle is not suitable. We can only suppress the strength and discuss it. In the castle, Mihawk, who was shaking a red wine glass, suddenly froze. The body began to slowly release a very solid fighting intent. Have you stepped out of your own kendo path? It seems that I'm a little ignorant, and I didn't expect such a change in the current sea. On the pirate ship, Shanks, who was sitting on the bow, also understood what Mihawk meant. Hee, I can understand the fighting spirit in your heart. However, there is some bad news that I think I need to tell you. Hearing this, Mihawk was slightly taken aback and said to the phone bug, what news? In this regard, Shanks laughed. If you're looking for that prince, it's going to be very difficult. 35. After all, people can fly a spaceship. I saw it with my own eyes. That ship took off and flew directly into the sky. So, all along, his whereabouts have been difficult to monitor. Plus, 156, historical text stone tablet in the treasure house of Lock Kingdom. After hearing Shanks' words, Mihawk also knew how difficult it was to find EC. However, after Mihawk saw the Helios Kingdom, where EC was located in the newspaper, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Indeed, it's a little difficult to find that elusive prince. However, sooner or later, he has to go back to the kingdom of Helios, isn't it? On the other end of the phone bug, Shankston paused slightly. I forgot about this. However, are you really going to wait for him in his kingdom? 35. Mihawk finished the red wine in the glass in one gulp and stood up slowly. Certainly, a person who has walked out of his own way of kendo is a person worthy of my waiting and challenge. 55. And having this kind of swordsmanship at such a young age, I can't imagine that it would be 5, 10, or even 20 years later. His sword, 333, said, which step will it go to? I really want to see. After speaking, Mihawk didn't care what Shanks said on the phone. He went directly to the place where his black top hat and trench coat were placed beside him. He stretched out his hand, put on his hat, put on his windbreaker, and came to the sword platform where the black sword and the knight were in full bloom. The kingdom of Helios, Mihawk murmured while stroking the hilt of the black knife knight. Then he stuck the black knife behind his back and fixed it. Mihawk slowly walked out of his castle. Next, Mihawk is going to the kingdom of Helios. The whole sea is talking about the battle between EC and Shanks. At this moment, after 3 days of flight, Dawn flew directly over the upside-down mountain and arrived over the island where the Lock Kingdom was located. Standing at the bow, observation Haki is released, and you can clearly feel the current state of the entire Lock Kingdom. There are shouts of killing everywhere. Broken limbs and broken arms can be seen everywhere, and scrupulous pirates, people who have been slaughtered. Everything was seen by EC and others on the Dawn. What about even a world government member country? The weak will be beaten. Had the so-called allied countries, when they were invaded by pirates, warned people from the world government, and even Marine didn't see it. 35. With the exaggerated scope of EC's observation Haki, what's happening in all parts of Lock's kingdom can be clearly perceived. Therefore, when EC saw this broken scene, he couldn't help but sigh twice. Hearing this, Monet and the others on the side did not speak. However, he completely agrees with what EC said. The weak will be beaten. The Lock Kingdom in front of you is a living example. Even if it is a world government member country, what can it do? It has not been invaded by pirates. Fortunately, the Kingdom of Helios is different from the Kingdom of Lock. Because of EC, the Kingdom of Helios has invested heavily in the development of the military and the kingdom's force. Whether it is the establishment of the Apocalypse Legion or the expansion of the 4 armies of the kingdom, EC vigorously promoted it against all opinions. Coupled with the presence of a strong man named Kixi, The strength of the kingdom of Helios can be described as incomparably powerful. Shaking his head, EC sighed a few words and then spoke to the others. This time I will go alone. My observation Haki has found the location of the historical text stone tablet. TSK, but I didn't expect that the treasure house of this kingdom has been evacuated and transported away. It seems that the 4 stars of this desert are also very smart. Below, the people of the Big Mom Pirates are still looting the entire Law Kingdom. Among them, most of the treasures have been taken away. After all, it took EC 3 days to arrive here from East Blue. If it weren't for the fact that the historical text steel was too cumbersome, it would have been removed long ago. And that intelligence officer, EC, also got the news from the intelligence department later. The intelligence officer was arranged to return by Charlotte Snugger after looting a boatload of treasure. So the intelligence officer didn't know the situation of the historical text stone tablet after that. Fortunately, Dawn could fly, so was able to arrive in a short time. At this time, under the shadow of EC's observation Haki, a huge square historical text steel is hidden in a palace. Inside and outside the palace, a large number of members of the Big Mom Pirates are watching over them. Among them, Charlotte Snag, one of the 4 desert stars, was also there. However, in terms of the strength of these people, EC did not take them seriously. After thinking about it for a while, EC decided to just take the historical text stone tablet. As for those pirates, EC thought about it and decided to let them go. Not because EC is generous, but because EC doesn't want to go back to China so soon. After all, if you kill these pirates with the information of the Big Mom Pirates, I am afraid that you will find yourself soon. But if you just take it away quietly, it will be different. If these pirates are killed, the Big Mom Pirates will most likely attack the Kingdom of Helios. Although EC is not afraid of the Big Mom Pirates, it would be different if Charlotte Linlin didn't talk about Wuda and called Kaido up. The 2 Four Emperors regiments meant that there were 2 top-level combat powers, 2 sub-emperor combat powers, and a large number of other levels of combat power. The top combat power, EC and Kixi, can be stopped, but it is still a little bit hanging to end the battle in a short time. And if the battle could not be ended in a short period of time, then no one in the 4 Emperors regiment would be able to resist. Don't look at the fact that Charlotte Linlin and Kaido fought Luffy so much in the original book. It's all because of the role of Luffy's protagonist Halo. You know, when I first introduced the 4 Emperors regiment, it was full of force. But as it got to the later stage, the strength of the 4 Emperors regiment began to decline. Especially the Big Mom Pirates and the 100 Beast Pirates completely lost the force. After all, Whitebeard still has a fierce top war-ending ceremony. And Charlotte Linlin and Kaido, that's really how strong in the early game, how weak in the late game. One is a natural steel balloon physique, and the defense is invincible. One is the super blood cow, which has a super strong recovery ability. In the end, he was beaten like that bird. To be honest, it was really eye-opening for EC in the previous life. And this world is the real world. EC, who had played against Shanks, knew very well how powerful the people who were also the future 4 emperors were. It is impossible to end the battle in a short period of time. Therefore, the Iraqi 1.0s who knew this very well finally chose to enter the village secretly and not to shoot. You know, EC not only has to think about himself, but also the people of the kingdom. In the final analysis, it is still the lack of high-end power. If the current kingdom has as much high-end combat power as Marine, needless to say, EC will definitely be reckless. Even if EC had all the laser cannons that Vince Smoke built before, EC can directly fire a salvo of 10,000 cannons, so that the pirate world can see what truth is within the range of cannons. It is a pity that the Kingdom of Helios only started a few short years ago. Now, it is still necessary to accumulate the heritage of the kingdom. Whether it is top-level combat power or 10,000 cannons, you need to continue to save. Reality is not a game. There is no option to do it all over again. Therefore, EC has always been very rational and calm. 157 add another piece of historical text and arrive at Shimatsuki village after making up his mind. EC turned into a bolt of lightning and went straight into the air. In the chaotic Lock Kingdom at this time, A lightning bolt quietly fell into the treasure house of Lock Kingdom without anyone noticing. At the same time, when EC came to the treasure house of Lock Kingdom, Charlotte Snag also happened to take some powerful men to suppress the resistance of the Lock Kingdom. EC, who was sitting on the beam of the palace, looked down at the pirates who were still working together to carry the historical text stone tablet. TSK, does this mean that I am lucky? Observation Haki since the departure of Charlotte Snugger, and EC couldn't help rubbing his chin. Then, a finger flickered slightly with wisps of arcs. Zazizia's slight arc of electric arc also sounded slowly above the palace. Huh? Did you hear anything? What sound? No, it seems there is. That's... Who are you? Damn, who is this life? What did you sneak in? Quick, go and report to Lord Snug. Inside the palace, the sound of an electric arc rang out. The people below also quickly found 22 EC sitting on the beam. Looking at the various forms of living beings in the palace, EC's fingers entwined with endless arcs gently pointed downwards. Suddenly, under the terrified eyes of all the pirates, a huge lightning grid instantly landed on the ground from the sky. In just an instant, the pirates on the ground were turned into coke by the power of lightning. There was no way to even let out a scream. The pirate who wanted to scream opened his mouth, but there was no sound to make. The only thing that came out of his mouth was a mouthful of gray-black anger. Pat jumped down from the roof beam. EC's feet fell on the ground. He stretched out his hand and pressed it on the historical text stone tablet, and the golden ripples flashed past. This historical text steel quickly disappeared in place. And the pagoda stone tablet in the treasure of the king is a historical text stone tablet that is being integrated with it. It is easy to harvest a historical text stone tablet. Observation Haki felt a little bit, and after confirming that he was not alive, EC incarnated as a thunderbolt and rushed into the sky, disappearing on the land of Lock Kingdom. Returning to Dawn, Shao immediately controlled Dawn to continue flying towards East Blue. Your Highness! Back on the boat, Robin asked in a low voice. Seeing this, EC smiled lightly, waved at Robin, and sent him into the treasure of the king. Sitting on the chair, EC took a sip of the ice-cold fruit wine that Monet had already prepared. Cold fruit wine is delicious, sighing softly. EC leaned back in the chair lazily. On the side, Monet obediently came behind EC and massaged EC's shoulders. The historical text steel has been handed over. As for what happens to Charlotte Snag after her mission fails, I don't care about EC. Dawn did not stop at the Grand Line and did not return to the kingdom of Helios. Under Akatsuki's control, Dawn returned to the East Blue area again, sailing aimlessly in the waters of East Blue with the passage of time. The appearance of the Dawn in East Blue is gradually imprinted in the eyes of those who care. A month later, at this time, EC was sitting at the bow, looking at the calm sea, looking a little irritable. It's been so long since I came to East Blue, but I still haven't found the Sixus Island where the burning fruit is located. EC also felt a little bored at East Blue. On this day, Dawn docked on the edge of an island. After such a long time, the materials have been consumed almost. Therefore, on this nearby island, EC decided that Dawn would replenish its supplies here. After stepping off the Dawn, EC followed Monet, and the two walked in the village at will. The rest went to various places in the village to start buying and replenishing supplies. And Robin is still translating the content of the historical text in Wangzabeo. Now the historical text on the pagoda stele has the content of 18 historical text steles. So, Robin is now constantly translating these and intends to connect them. As a result, Robin fell into a state of sleeplessness. Seventh Aunt, Mr. Koshiro's Kendo field has started recruiting apprentices again. Do you want to send your child there? Hey, I also thought, unfortunately, there is no other money in the family for tuition. 35, although Mr. Koshiro doesn't want to accept it. If my child wants to send it, I can't help it. That's right. Sai, in this damn world, pirates are rampant, and even us fishermen will grab it. Forget it. It's pretty good to be able to survive. That's right. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Right? I heard a gossip yesterday. What gossip? I heard that a laboratory in our East Blue seems to have leaked a lot of poisonous mosquitoes. 35. What poisonous mosquito? Where did you hear about it? And how could you possibly know about the poisonous mosquito? A7 ants, don't believe me. The brother-in-law of the sister-in-law of my uncle's grandson's grandson is working as a security guard in a laboratory. He passed the news of mine, but I only told you because we were so familiar. Recently, you must be careful of those big mosquitoes. I heard that some mosquitoes have experimental numbers on their tails. Those poisonous mosquitoes are very poisonous. Okay, I'll go back and kill the bugs in the house later. 9, that's right. I'm still gonna lie to you, don't I? With the departure of the 2 village ants. At the stall where the 2 ants left, EC, who was eating, had a gleam in his eyes. Koshiro, this is Shimatsuki village. I didn't expect to come here. I was thinking of coming back sometime later, but just go and have a look when you come. 39 with a few words in his heart. EC got up and walked towards the boss after eating the noodles in the bowl. Boss, may I ask if there's a kendo on this island? After hearing the question from the guest, EC, the boss who was busy with the next post replied subconsciously. Yes, that's the kendo club opened by Mr. Koshiro. Speaking of which, my grandson is also studying there. Furthermore, the location of the kendo is not far from our village. Just walk straight for a while from the entrance of the back village. Hearing this, EC smiled lightly, took out Bailey and paid for it, and left with Monet. And the direction that EC and Monet left was exactly what the boss called Hakanku. 158, visit the Kendo Museum. The great swordsman Shimatsuki Koshiro. 39, haha, cut. What? Go ahead, cut again. 99 at the foot of a hill at the entrance of the back village of Shimatsuki village. A huge kendo field is located here. At this time, in the kendo arena, dozens of little kids were practicing slashing with bamboo knives. And around these little kids, several teachers are constantly walking around. If you see that the posture is not correct, you will also straighten it. In the kendo field, except for the little kid who is practicing, beside the corridor of a room on the left side of the kendo field, a middle-aged man with glasses and squinting eyes was drinking tea and looking at the people in the kendo field. This person is the owner of this kendo, Shimatsuki Koshiro. Looking at the apprentices who were correcting exercises, Koshiro's eyes slowly averted. Finally, it was placed in a corner of the kendo arena. In that corner, a girl with short black hair and a white training suit is seriously practicing swordsmanship. In addition, not far from the girl, a boy with green hair and wearing black training clothes is constantly exercising. Still haven't given up. Koshiro looked at Kuina with a sigh in his eyes. Then, he looked away from Kuina's body and put on Zoro's body. When he saw Zoro, who was doing strength training, Koshiro's eyes showed relief and joy. Originally, Koshiro thought that his kendo was about to break. Who knew that the kid who came to the gym that day had such a talent? That is to say, if Zoro's talent is valued, Koshiro will accept it without hesitation. Even Koshiro didn't investigate too much about Zoro's origin. Of course, because of Zoro's idiot, Koshiro couldn't find anything even if he wanted to investigate. After that, Koshiro trained Zoro separately. And Zoro did not disappoint Koshiro, and now Zoro is the most suitable heir Koshiro has encountered so far. As time passed, Koshiro kept checking Zoro's training progress. Suddenly, Koshiro's originally observing movements paused slightly, and his eyes opened slightly at this moment. His left hand gently pushed his glasses, while his right hand was slowly placed under the table beside him. At this moment, Koshiro felt a strong sense of kendo, and it is getting closer and closer to where you are. Walk on this country road. EC and Monet walked towards the kendo field that was already in sight, while admiring the original scenery on both sides. Walking into the area where the kendo is located, the two of them heard the uniform shouting. His Royal Highness, I didn't expect that there is such a big kendo field here. As he walked, Monet was slightly surprised. She really did not expect that there would be such a big and formal kendo in East Blue. It's not surprising that a kendo club of this size was established by a great swordsman from Wanakuni. Hearing this, EC explained with a slight smile. This was originally one of my destinations for East Blue. It's just that I didn't expect that we would encounter this time by mistake in replenishing supplies. 35 walking into the kendo field. The first thing that caught the eyes of the two of them was a huge plaque. The 4 fonts of the Ishin Dojo are magnificent, and the stylus and silver hooks are located on the plaque. And EC felt an incomparably sharp swordsmanship from the plaque. Ishin Dojo. Monet looked up at the plaque and subconsciously muttered it. No, Your Highness, what you just said was, the owner of this Ishin Dojo is from Wanakuni? After saying a few words, Monet suddenly reacted. I didn't expect Ishin Dojo to come from Wanakuni, who was closed to the country. Suddenly, Monet's heart was filled with curiosity. Although Wanakuni is located in New World, it is closed to the country due to the policy. Others above the sea, it is difficult to reach the people of Wanakuni. Unexpectedly, there's a kendo club founded by Wanakuni people in One East Blue. Yeah, swordsman from Wanakuni. Hearing Monet's voice, EC smiled lightly. As he spoke, he slowly pushed open the door of the dojo with both hands. A member of the Shimatsuki clan who inherits the Wanakuni sword god Shimatsuki Ryoma. What I said should be right. Great swordsman, Mr. Shimatsuki Koshiro. The door to the dojo was opened by an uninvited EC. At the same time, EC's voice spread throughout the Ishin Dojo. For a while, the rest of the people in the Ishin Dojo could not help but quiet down. The apprentices who practiced in groups, the traveling teachers, the kuna, and Zoro who practice alone. At this moment, everyone turned to look at Koshiro's location. After all, EC just said Koshiro's name above board, and Koshiro's name is basically known to the entire dojo. Father is a great swordsman, looking at Koshiro, who has a famous sword in his hand since I don't know when. Kuina couldn't help but murmured something. All along, Kuina has known that her father is very powerful. However, in normal times, Koshiro's performance made Kuina a little puzzled again and again. Therefore, Kuina just judged that Koshiro is very powerful. It's just that Kuina doesn't know how strong it is. And now, after EC revealed Koshiro's strength in one sentence, Kuina was also extremely shocked. He has been learning swordsmanship since childhood. Although Koshiro has always emphasized that women cannot become powerful swordsmen because of their natural disadvantages. But Kuina still practiced unremittingly, so Kuina is very clear about some things about kendo. It was because Kuina knew these things that Kuina was shocked that her father was an unknown great swordsman. Not only Kuina, but at this moment, everyone else in the entire Ishin Dojo was shocked by Koshiro's strength. Among them, those apprentices and teachers are all shocked and mixed with a strong surprise. And Zoro with a green head is 3-point shock, 3-point surprise, 3-point frenzy, and 1-point ambition. Well, the whole person's expression is like a fan chart. Zoro's heart at this moment is abnormally surging. Although he is a road idiot, Zoro is not an idiot. He knew very well how extravagant it was that he could let a great swordsman teach independently. 159. Kendo challenge from EC just when everyone in the Ishin Dojo looked at Koshiro in silence and shock. At this time, Koshiro also spoke slowly to EC. His Royal Highness is here. I don't know why you are here at my small dojo. For what EC just said, Koshiro didn't answer anything. At this time, Koshiro wanted to know more about why EC came back to him. Hearing Koshiro's words, everyone in the dojo gradually came to their senses. Soon, everyone reacted, and now the person standing at the gate seems to be the one who kicked the hall. Therefore, everyone could not help but look at the gate where EC and Monet were. Kuina frowned as she looked at EC, who was wearing low-key and luxurious clothes. With Kuina's sharp eyes practicing kendo, it is easy to see that EC's age is not much different from his own. Although I don't understand why EC is so bold and dare to provoke his father. But Kuina still chose to be silent, standing quietly watching EC and Koshiro. Everyone else, including Zoro, thinks the same. However, some apprentices soon recognized EC's identity. After all, the 2 times EC was published in the newspaper was sent to the world by the Birdman of Morgans. Combined with what Koshiro just said, It was normal for EC to be recognized. Hey, I think I saw him in the newspaper. That's right. I've seen him before. He is the prince with super swordsmanship. 333. Slay the legendary pirate and fight against the prince of the kingdom of Helios, who is the new four emperors. That's right. While EC was still hanging around in East Blue, the red hair pirates had left East Blue and returned to New World. And probably because of the butterfly EC, the red hair pirates left East Blue and entered New World. He directly challenged the members of the Big Mom Pirates, and Shanks, who did not lose his arm, fought with Charlotte Linlin. After a fierce battle between the two sides, most of the Cake Island was destroyed, and the red-haired pirates immediately retreated. And Shanks, also in Morgan's newspaper, was on an equal footing with the other three and was called the Four Emperors. Moreover, the newspapers had just spread across the sea not so long ago. However, EC already knew about this matter, so he wasn't too surprised. The most I can do is to sigh that a butterfly has changed so many things unknowingly. Shanks did not break his arm and ascended the position of the Four Emperors earlier, all of which are very different from the original. However, those thoughts just flickered in EC's mind. At this moment, EC still set his sights on the Ishin Dojo. Looking at Koshiro, EC's eyes slowly moved to the famous sword and Daoichi character in his hand. What I value is the famous sword in your hand. Mr. Koshiro, in the name of the sword, let's fight, and the winner will take the other sword. Hum with EC's right hand, he slammed into the air ripples on the side. Immediately, a golden sword with a snowflake-like blade appeared in EC's hand. Noble Phantasm. Demon Snow type. Active Noble Phantasm. Type Inherent Noble Phantasm Liberation 1. Frost Swordsmanship Liberation 2. Fusion Upgrade. Up to the level of the Big Knife, this demonic snow was formed by the fusion of the Snow Walk that EC obtained earlier and the third generation Ghost. After the third generation Guitu and Shuizao were transformed into Noble Phantasms, EC discovered that the third generation Guitu actually possessed some characteristics of the 7-star sword. Therefore, EC used Yukigo to fuse with the third generation Onadu after that. After the fusion, EC obtained this brand new weapon, Yaoshua, whose quality has reached the level of the Big Knife. The reason why the previous fight with the red-haired Shanks didn't come out was because at that time, EC hadn't fused it yet. This time, when I came to Shimatsuki Village, EC realized that he had no weapon in hand. That's why I remembered the Snow Walk and the third generation Ghost in the King's Treasure, and then discovered this feature and secretly used the King's Treasure to fuse them into a big quick sword. The big quick knife, the Demon Snow, should be enough, kba, as a bargaining chip. 39. Looking at Koshiro, EC shook the dagger in his hand. Looking at EC, Koshiro pondered slightly. As for the rest of the dojo, no one spoke. Even the iron-headed Zoro and Kuina, who has always been a big sister, didn't speak at this time. The breeze was blowing, and within the Ishin dojo, two sharp breaths gradually evaporated. Before, North Blue and West Blue had a large number of swordsmen who were challenged at their door, and then had their swords taken away. Standing up slowly, Koshiro spoke. If my guess is correct, those things should also be done by His Royal Highness? Although I don't know why His Royal Highness wanted to collect so many swordsmen's swords. However, a sword is like a relative or a companion to a swordsman. If you want to get it, you must defeat the swordsman with the sword. Although His Royal Highness has an amazing record, I still want to see it. Chant buzzing, the long-hidden momentum rose into the sky. With the words Hadao slowly unsheathed. In the dojo, except for the Demon Snow knife in EC's hand, it was not affected. In the hands of the rest of the people, both real swords and bamboo swords were constantly buzzing. The people watching this scene were shocked. Subconsciously, everyone consciously walked to the edge of the dojo, making the central area of the dojo suddenly empty. Father, with both hands clasping the dagger that vibrated more and more strongly, Kuina's face couldn't help showing a look of horror. Aside, Zoro is also holding his 3 bamboo knives tightly. Zoro's 3 swords actually had a rough prototype as early as when he was studying at Ishin Dojo. It wasn't because of Kuina's accidental death that Zoro changed to the three-sword style. According to the original, Zoro's ability to become a Santo Ryu swordsman is inseparable from his childhood friend Kuina. The young Zoro came to Koshiro's gym to play the gym, and since then met Koshiro's also young daughter Kuina. Although Zoro at that time boasted that he was invincible in the neighboring villages and kicked the gym on a whim, he never used a weapon. Zoro's impression of swords is that the more swords they hold, the more powerful they are. So Zoro, who holds a bundle of bamboo swords in each of his left and right hands, with a few bamboo swords in his mouth, is easily defeated by Kuina. Zoro didn't change his impression that the more swords he used, the more powerful he was. When training strength together, don't forget to pull a big rock tied with a rope in your mouth to exercise your mouth muscles. As for Zoro's determination to use the three-knife flow, Kuina's role in fueling the flames is indispensable. Kuina is a girl who can't become the world's top swordsman and can't inherit a gym. Although Kuina always wins in more than 2,000 competitions with Zoro, Kuina actually envies Zoro for being a boy and for his strength. Therefore, when Zoro gets along, it is said from time to time that the two-knife flow requires a lot of strength, saying that Zoro can't control it to stimulate Zoro. Zoro, who refuses to admit defeat, is training hard, not to mention the second sword. Zoro wants to be the master of the third sword. That is, at that time, Zoro actually already had the prototype of the three-knife style. 160 The Shimatsuki style, swordsmanship performed by EC, the horrified Koshiro choke. When the word Hadao finally came out, a clanging sound resounded throughout the kendo field. At this moment, Koshiro was standing on the floor of the attic with the word Hadao, and EC was standing at the gate of the dojo with a demon snow knife. The breeze blew, and the kendo aura on the two of them began to become more and more intense. This is a kendo duel. Therefore, all non-kendo abilities will not be used. Conqueror's Haki, devil fruit abilities, etc., neither of them can use it. As a Wanakuni swordsman, Koshiro maintains a divine will for kendo duels. Although EC is not a pure swordsman, he is also very clear about the kendo duel. So, this time, EC will not use Conqueror's Haki and devil fruit abilities. Even the ability of the strong fruit was sealed by itself at this moment. EC came here and wanted more than just a handle and a word. Halala, unconsciously, the wind began to slowly rise in the dojo, when a bamboo knife was blown from a knife holder to the ground by the wind. In an instant, the figures of Koshiro and EC disappeared. At the same time, everyone in the dojo couldn't help showing a touch of fear at this moment. This speed is completely beyond everyone's knowledge. Ding. Double hit. In the central area of the dojo, at this time, the figures of EC and Koshiro appeared again. A crisp tinkling sound came out. Immediately afterwards, sparks continued to grow and die from the weapons they exchanged. Neither of them used any power other than kendo, just pure kendo power. At this moment, it still shocked everyone in the dojo. The hair stood up, and layers of goosebumps appeared on the body. Ding, 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 ding. The stalemate between the two sides did not last long. After a little stalemate, Koshiro was the first to change his moves. The word Hadao in his hand is constantly waving, and the profound basic swordsmanship makes every move with a strong trace of kendo. Hidao E-text flipped up and down and turned into shadows that were constantly attacking EC at this moment. The footsteps changed, and at this moment, Koshiro couldn't see the original quiet appearance at all. Ding, 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 ding. The crisp sound kept ringing. EC stood there and narrowed his eyes slightly. The demon snow knife in his hand has always been calm and unhurried. Boom! Finally, in another fight, EC found a loophole in Koshiro's offense at one point. Afterwards, EC exerted a little force on his feet, and the whole person directly ejected and started. The ground that EC had just stepped on was deeply sunk in. It disappeared in place in an instant at a speed that was invisible to the naked eye. At this time, Koshiro was even more shocked. Relying on the kendo intuition that he has cultivated over the years, he subconsciously resisted the word Hadao in front of his chest. Clang! This time, The sound of two swords clashing was no longer a crisp clanging sound. Under the strength of EC, the two exchanged a dull, clanging sound. The powerful power is transmitted to the sword body of Hidea character through the demon snow knife. Then, from the blade of the word Kadoichi, it is transmitted to Koshiro's body. Koshiro's body jolted violently under the impact of the powerful force. A circle of dust under his feet rose instantly in a silent vibration. Then, the body involuntarily retreated, and both feet drew a long trace on the ground. Just as Koshiro is going backwards, EC is ready to pursue the victory. A ray of light flashed across his eyes, and the demon snow knife in his hand suddenly swung horizontally. The blade trembled, and in an instant, it was a horizontal slash to Koshiro's figure. Shimatsuki stream, breaking wind. An invisible sword energy broke through the air and flew straight towards Koshiro's position. After this move, both Kuina, who was watching the battle, and Koshiro, who was retreating, were all shocked. In my heart, I subconsciously said the name of this trick. At this moment, Koshiro was in shock, and even more curious about why EC used Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship. However, looking at the sword energy coming from the sky, Koshiro could only suppress the doubt in his heart first. He stomped his right foot backwards to stop his body from going backwards. Then Kazuchi was lifted over his head by Koshiro. The blue veins in both hands burst out and slashed against the sword energy that came from the sky. Shimatsuki style, slash the wind. 35 boom. The invisible sword ki squeezed around, and a vertical sword ki collided with the horizontal sword ki that was galloping. The two collided and then shattered, and the violent airflow danced wildly around. 4 flowers 0. Wow. The tyrannical airflow will continue to blow towards the surrounding. The strong wind blew some apprentices who did not stand up and fell to the ground one after another. The strong wind blew the surrounding knife holders to the ground. Not only that, a trace of deep sword marks appeared on the knife holder after the strong wind blew. His Royal Highness, why do you use Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship? Koshiro couldn't help but look a little solemn when he held the word Hidao at an angle. This, if you win, I can tell you. Hearing this, EC smiled lightly. The eyes of the two collided again, and then the figure disappeared instantly. Ah. Swords, lights, swords, and shadows flew out continuously along with the lingering sword energy. The two sides officially entered the state of duel. Sword ki vertical and horizontal. Sword light, sword shadow. For a while, a sword ki splashed out from time to time in the entire dojo. The people watching the battle were even more embarrassed because of the sword ki attacking one after another. Seeing this, Monet couldn't help but move his heart and waved his right hand gently. Then endless snowflakes fell from the sky at this moment. A wall of snowflakes appeared in front of everyone. The sword ki flew and hit the wall of snowflakes, all of which were blocked by the wall of snowflakes. For a while, Kuina and the others looked at Monet in surprise. In East Blue, these people don't know about devil fruits. Even if you read the newspapers, you still don't know much about devil fruits. Therefore, after seeing Monet's ability, everyone was very surprised. However, the Kendo duel is just around the corner. Everyone was surprised by Monet's ability to manipulate snowflakes. However, everyone still set their sights on EC and Koshiro who were fighting. The battle between the two, the incomparably condensed swordsmanship aura. In the dojo, all those who learned swordsmanship yearn for it. Shimatsuki flow, cut wind. Shimatsuki flow, cut wind. 35 ding, 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 ding. Shimatsuki stream. Intermediary. Shimatsuki stream. Intermediary. 35 clang. Shimatsuki flow. After EC performed Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship. In the next battle, both EC and Koshiro began to constantly display different sword moves to fight 10. 161 The Kendo duel comes to an end. Sword light, sword shadow, and sword energy. Under the constant battle, gradually EC's swordsmanship began to change. After another duel, EC instantly retreated a distance of dozens of meters with the help of Koshiro's strength. At the moment when the power was removed, EC took a step forward without the slightest pause. In an instant, EC's figure crossed a distance of 100 meters and appeared 100 meters away. Extreme sword art, instant kill. Without the slightest bit of defense, Koshiro and EC passed by. In the space that crossed, the sword energy condensed in one point appeared around Koshiro. Boom! A little sword energy exploded in an instant. The endless sword energy created a storm of sword energy around Koshiro. Countless sword spirits shuttle back and forth continuously, and the sharp-edged sword spirit makes people startled. Father, Master, 99 Master, 39 see this scene. Kuina, Zoro, 333, and many apprentices who were watching the battle couldn't help being slightly surprised. In the sword storm, Koshiro's originally neat robes were constantly being cut at this time. There was also a trace of blood on the skin of the body. Such swordsmanship. At this moment, Koshiro didn't care about the bloodstains that appeared on him. Under the glasses, a pair of glasses widened in vain. There was only that horrified look in his eyes at this kind of swordsmanship. After hearing the worried voices of Kuina and others, Koshiro suddenly reacted. Then he Dowie slammed the word. A solitary light flashes horizontally. Ishin flow arc flash. Clang, 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 clang. Completely disregarding the more and more bloodstains on his body. At this moment, Koshiro's arc-like sword energy was powerfully tearing the sword energy storm around him into pieces. However, the corresponding price was that bloodstains appeared all over Koshiro's body at this time. All that said, but it all happened in just a few seconds. At this time, EC, after using the sword move, was just ready to perform the next move. At the same time, Koshiro turned around abruptly after breaking through the sword energy storm. Hidawai's text is constantly shaking. After discovering EC's figure, Koshiro didn't hesitate. The word Hidao in his hand instantly slashed in the direction of EC. Ishin flow, rising dragon slash. A sword slashed out. There seemed to be a screeching sound in the air. Ow, this one, the invisible sword energy is continuously compressed. In the end, a dragon-shaped slash that was visible to the naked eye condensed in front of Koshiro. Jean instantly turned into a translucent white dragon, and after uttering a loud dragon roar at EC, it rushed towards EC's position at high speed. Extremely divine swordsmanship. Draw sword and slash. In place, EC's eyes did not change in the slightest. Originally, I wanted to continue following the technique of attacking again after the instant kill. The demon snow knife in his hand is placed on his waist, and his right hand is on the handle of the knife. His eyes were fixed on the translucent, white dragon galloping towards him. Clang! It sounded like a scabbard-like sound. EC's right hand suddenly pulled out the demon snow knife. In an instant, a half-moon-shaped slash like a waning moon suddenly appeared. The waning moon Janju galloped towards the translucent white dragon at a speed invisible to the naked eye. Boom! Eventually, the two collided. After a stalemate for a few seconds, it exploded, accompanied by a deafening explosion. Inside the dojo seems like a hurricane passing through. Countless things were blown into the sky by this hurricane. The smoke and dust in the sky completely blocked most of the dojo. The audience around, except Monet, can use observation Haki to observe the situation in the dust at this moment. The rest of the people could only stare nervously at the dust in the sky, but couldn't see what was happening in the dust. In the dust, a huge crater after the explosion appeared between the two. When the tyrannical hurricane dissipated, before Koshiro could stand firm, EC's attack came quietly. Ultimate God Yujin Liu, Storm Sword Formation, hum. The next moment, Koshiro felt as if he had fallen into a quagmire. The surrounding air became extremely stagnant at this time. In an instant, with Koshiro at the center, golden ripples suddenly appeared around him. An illusory demon snow knife emerged from the golden ripples at this moment. Blade tip, blade body hilt. In just the blink of an eye, A large number of illusory demon snow knives were stuck on the ground. Above the sky, there are also a large number of phantoms of demon snow knives suspended. At the moment when the air stagnates to its limit, infinite slash, swish, 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 swish. EC's figure flashed into the sword formation, and the endless sword light flashed continuously. Inside the dojo, Kuna and the others looked at the sword lights that kept rising in the smoke. My heart couldn't help but lift it up tightly. Inside the smoke, EC's figure kept flashing in front of a demon snow knife every time. EC's figure will appear in the place of a demon snow knife. After that, the demon snow knife was pulled up by EC in an instant and flashed into the sword formation again. Clang! When the last demon snow knife was pulled up by EC, a sonorous sound rang out, followed by a dazzling golden sword energy in the sword formation that fell straight in front of Koshiro through the smoke and dust. Boom! The roar sounded again. This caused everyone in the dojo to stare at the gradually dissipating smoke and dust. As the smoke cleared, Kuna and the others saw Koshiro half kneeling on the ground at a glance. At this moment, the sword marks on Koshiro's body were deeply imprinted on his body. Blood kept dripping from the wound. In front of Koshiro, a deep gully appeared, and not far from the gully, a huge pit appeared. Father! Seeing this, Kuina couldn't take it anymore. He threw down his dagger and hurried to Koshiro's side to support him. Then Zoro and many teachers and apprentices also surrounded Koshiro in the center. Ahem! That's an amazing swordsmanship. With Kuina's support, Koshiro also slowly stood up. Looking at EC, although there is some reluctance in my heart, but the kendo duel has fallen, and I really lost. I lost. Immediately, Koshiro handed Zoro the word Hadao. Zoro, please give the word Hadao to His Royal Highness. Hearing this, Zoro, who was holding the word Hadao, clenched tightly. 1.0 in the end, Zoro saw Koshiro's determination and could only helplessly give a low response. I see. Master, dejectedly walking to EC, Zoro directly handed EC the text of Hadao. He then returned to Koshiro's location with a black face. In response, EC smiled lightly and returned all the words Hidea and Yaoshi Hadao to the treasure of the king. His Royal Highness's swordsmanship is incomparably miraculous. I wonder if I can discuss it with His Highness. Koshiro also nodded slightly after seeing EC accepting the words of Hidawi. Although it was very reluctant at the beginning, but when I lost, I lost. As a swordsman of Wanakuni, he is a descendant of Shimatsuki Ryoma, the god of swords. Koshiro received a strict kendo education from an early age. So, in this regard, Koshiro can only sigh that his strength is not good, but he will not blame EC for this. As a swordsman and a dojo master, it is normal to accept challenges from other swordsmen. 162 The hot-blooded Zoro. The strength of Ka, hearing Koshiro's invitation, EC was slightly taken aback. Didn't expect Koshiro to make such a request after the defeat. Speaking of which, EC originally thought that he would be disliked by Koshiro, but he did not think that he underestimated Koshiro. However, EC was more satisfied with this. Therefore, EC agreed without hesitation after thinking for a short moment. No problem. Speaking of which, I would also like to discuss it with Mr. Koshiro. Kendo Jingjin can't do it behind closed doors. Hearing this, Koshiro nodded lightly. Then, Your Highness, let's rest at the dojo first. I will discuss with His Royal Highness after I have dealt with the wounds on my body. 35 Seeing this, EC nodded and had no other opinion. After all, he had just done a bit of a heavy hand. Then, under the leadership of a teacher, EC and Monet went to the parlor, and Koshiro went to the medical center in the dojo to apply medicine. After the departure of EC and Koshiro at all 22, inside the dojo, the originally quiet apprentices started talking. Just because both EC and Koshiro were there, many apprentices were afraid to speak even if they had something to say. After all, the aura of the two of them was extremely oppressive to these apprentices. Now, with the departure of EC and others, Many apprentices finally no longer feel that strong sense of oppression. Why did the master leave him in the dojo? Idiot. Didn't the master say that he wants to discuss swordsmanship with His Royal Highness this prince? It's amazing. When can I be so amazing? Stop dreaming. Not everyone can be as powerful as the master and the prince. Yeah, if I can reach the level of swordsman in my life, I feel that it is already very powerful. Me too. It would be great to be able to give me the power to protect the village. 99. Yes, we are the new leaves, and in the future, we will take on the important task of protecting the village from the invasion of pirates. My favorite is what Grandpa Hiruzen used to say. Where the leaves are flying, the fire will continue to grow, and the fire will continue to illuminate the village and make new leaves sprout. Me too, me too. Every time I hear this, I feel like I'm going to explode. This is what motivates us to work hard. What are you waiting for? Keep practicing. That's right. For the sake of the village. Keep practicing. 35 what? Drink. Huh. 35 soon. Many apprentices heard that sentence. Began to inexplicably actively practice up. The other side. After Koshiro left, Kuina stayed in the forecourt of the dojo. At this time, Zoro came to Kuina with a wooden knife in hand. At this time, Zoro didn't notice the disappointed look on Kuina's face at all. After seeing EC, who is about the same age as himself, get to fight with his father Koshiro. Now Kuina has finally recovered from the fierce battle just now. After realizing that EC was almost the same age as himself, Kuina couldn't help but think of Koshiro's words in the past. Girls can't be strong. Girls' strength is too small to be a great swordsman. At the same level, men will definitely be better than girls. Before, no matter what Koshiro said, Kuina would not believe it. Even if Zoro is making rapid progress, Kuina will continue to comfort herself. After all, Zoro couldn't beat himself after all. But after watching EC's fight with Koshiro, there were cracks in Kuina's heart. They're all the same age. Why is the gap so big just because I'm a girl? Just when Kuina stood in place and fell into thought, Zoro came to Kuina. Kuina, duel with me. This time, I will definitely win. Looking at Zoro, who was full of fighting spirit, Kuina couldn't help clenching the handle of the knife in his hand. Although in the previous duel, Kuina won. However, Kuina also understood Zoro's terrifying progress in battle. Now, if not relying on the basic skills and swordsmanship of kendo that I have learned since childhood, relying on strength alone, Kuina knew she was no match for Zoro. Father, is this the difference between men and women in kendo? With a whisper in her heart, Kuina didn't speak, but still assumed a fighting stance. Zoro's eyes lit up when he saw this. The wooden knives in both hands quickly waved, and he also rushed towards Kuina quickly. You're still so reckless. Seeing Zoro rushing towards him, Kuina raised the wooden knife in his hand. After finding the right moment, he slashed at Zoro. Boom! Two wooden knives held Kuina's wooden knives. However, at the next moment, Kuina's wooden knife turned, instantly swinging away Zoro's two wooden knives. For a moment, Zoro's empty door opened. Taking this opportunity, Kuina's wooden knife slammed hard on Zoro's head. Boom! Without the slightest accident at the moment when the head was hit hard. Zoro fell straight to the ground. But, damn! Covering his head, Zoro yelled at Kuina with a series of sadness and pain. In this regard, Kuina did not show the slightest expression. He threw down the wooden sword in his hand, turned around, picked up the sword that he had just put aside, and slowly left the front yard of the dojo 350. Looking down at the blunt blade in his hand, Kuina looked at the direction EC was taken to the living room by the teacher. Ishin Dojo, parlor. At this time, Koshiro, who had finished applying the medicine and changed into a new suit, was sitting opposite EC and talking. His Royal Highness, I have always had a question about the battle just now. 35 filling EC's teacup with tea, Koshiro said involuntarily. Hearing this, EC turned his head slightly and understood what Koshiro meant. Mr. Koshiro, what I want to ask should be why I know the swordsmanship of your Shimatsuki clan, right? Koshiro was not surprised to hear that EC knew what he wanted to ask. Now that it was brought up by EC himself, Koshiro followed suit. Yes, I'm very curious about that. 35. After all, Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship has always been the family swordsmanship of our Shimatsuki family. 99. It stands to reason that it will not be rumored. And over the years, there have been no outmarried women from the Shimatsuki family. 35. Hearing this, EC smiled lightly. Mr. Koshiro, I know Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship because of my special ability. What I can tell you is that I haven't been to Wanakuni. I learned Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship from other places. 163. The battle in the Kingdom Sea. The world's largest swordsman, I see. After hearing EC's explanation, Koshiro stopped asking. After all, in Koshiro's impression, the Shimatsuki style of swordsmanship performed by EC is very old. After generations of Shimatsuki family improvements, today's Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship has long been very different from the ancient Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship. So, Koshiro didn't ask any further after asking. After figuring it out, Koshiro and EC discussed Kendo in the next time. At the pier, the Dawn stayed here at this time. At this time, the members of the Jinhao team who replenished the supplies have all returned. Xiao, where did your highness go? After returning, Brooke didn't find EC's figure and could not help but ask Akatsuki, who was playing in the water beside him. Hearing this, Xiao lightly jumped out of the sea and returned to the deck of the Dawn. His Royal Highness went to the dojo on this island. After finding a place to sit down, Akatsuki said while shaking her little feet, "It shouldn't come back so soon." Hearing Akatsuki's words, Brooke couldn't help touching his skeleton's chin. No wonder we just felt the breath of Kendo battle. I didn't expect that there's a swordsman hidden in an ordinary small village in East Blue. Oh no, it should be the great swordsman. Otherwise it won't arouse His Highness's interest. 5. A great swordsman hiding in East Blue. I'm also very interested. Let's go and see after that. Brooke jumped off the Dawn and walked quickly towards the position of Ishin Dojo. On the boat, the rest of the Jinhao squad members looked at their unreliable captain's back, and they all showed helpless expressions. Nazarus, Odysseus, Thanatos, Erebus, the 4 of you, stay with the captain. 39 on the deck. Arthas, as the vice captain, can only take on the responsibility of the captain. After thinking for a while, Arthas assigned it. His Royal Highness's safety is the most important thing. So the 4 of you should follow Captain Brooke too. As for me and the others, just stay here and watch the boat. Hearing this, the members of the swordsman squad nodded their heads. Immediately, the members of the Jinhao team were divided into 2 groups. One group followed Brooke, and the other group stayed behind the Dawn. Grand Line, in the waters near the Kingdom of Helios. At this time, on a deserted island in this sea area, the aura of the sky continued to spread away. Inside the deserted island, one after another indestructible giant slashing is in the sea near the shooting path. At this moment, around this nameless desert island, a large number of news birds are flying up and down. One after another, the sound of the camera shutter sounded continuously. Beyond that, in rough seas around the desert island, the sea where a dozen ships were rolling rose and fell with it. Some of these ships are pirate ships, some are merchant ships, and some are travel ships, but most of them are kingdom warships. At this moment, all the people on the boat were dumbfounded. Who would have thought that the world's greatest swordsman would meet an equal opponent in the Kingdom of Helios? That's right. Now the battle on the desert island near the waters of the Kingdom of Helios. It was the battle between Hawkeye, Mihawk, and Kixie. Since Mihawk contacted Shanks through the phone bug to learn about EC's strength, Mihawk didn't hesitate to take his own black knife, Yi, and set out to sea in his own coffin boat. Because it belongs to the Grand Line, and recently the reputation of the Kingdom of Helios has grown louder. Mihawk also arrived in the waters of the Kingdom of Helios after a month-long voyage. Then, because the coffin ship did not take a specific sailing route, this made Mihawk directly attacked by a large number of Poseidon classes. The battle between the two also made Kixie in the Kingdom of Helios notice. Afterwards, Kixie relied on the ability of the fluttering fruit to cross the sea to the place where Mihawk fought against the Poseidon class. After seeing the Poseidon class beheaded by Mihawk, Kixi was furious. Without the slightest conversation, he directly pulled out the seven-star sword and moved towards Mihawk. And Mihawk himself is a sword idiot. After meeting Kixi, a powerful swordsman who attacked, Mihawk didn't have any explanation and stood with Kixi. After that, the two started fighting on a deserted island in the nearby sea. As for the dozen or so ships, they were attracted by this huge battle. Boom! Inside the deserted island, the wind was blowing, deafening. Countless condensed slashes with a height of tens of meters slashed out from the hands of Kixi and Mihawk. The two sides collided, making a loud bang. The continuous explosion was caused by the collision of the slashes. Boom! 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 Holding the seven-star sword in his hand, Kixi's face was also a little serious at this time. Originally, Kixi thought it was someone who wanted to smuggle to Helios Kingdom. I didn't expect this person to be so powerful. The seven-star sword in his hand kept slashing, and the slashes smashed away one after another. The terrifying slash, carrying strong wind pressure, caused the clouds in the sky to be swept away. Bang! Bang! At the same time, on the other side, Mihawk was also holding the Black Knife Knight. The sword with huge sleeves keeps dancing in front of you. Facing the huge slash from Kixi's slash, Mihawk didn't care at all. However, such a strong battle also made Mihawk excited. Since ascending the throne of the world's greatest swordsman, Mihawk has not found any other kendo opponents except Shanks. However, in the battle with Kixi at this time, Holies, Hawk felt a different experience from Shanks. Different kendo, different fighting, different atmosphere. Mihawk at this moment was extremely pleasantly surprised. I originally wanted to come to Helios Kingdom to wait for EC. However, to Mihawk's surprise, he did not expect that the Kingdom of Helios would have such a powerful great swordsman. As far as kendo is concerned, Mihawk clearly felt that his swordsmanship was going to be slightly inferior. The reason was that in this fierce battle, Mihawk discovered that Kixi's swordsmanship was ever-changing. His own swordsmanship and swordsmanship can be completely resolved by Kixi, no matter what. So, don't look at the fact that the two of them are fighting very loudly. Countless slashes were constantly flying as if they didn't need physical strength. And this was guided by Mihawk. After all, when swordsmanship is at a disadvantage, then the power of slashing will determine the outcome. 164 Mihawk retreats and saves Kuna as time passed. The battle became more and more intense. Dao slashes between the heaven and the earth. The earth began to tremble, and the earth began to be torn apart by the slash. The sky was slashed by one after another, leaving a trail of long-lasting traces. Extremely God Yujianliu breaking the air and drawing his sword. Clang! The seven-star sword was returned to its sheath and then suddenly pulled out in the next instant. In front of Kixi, an extremely sharp arc of light suddenly appeared. Immediately afterwards, the arc light continuously pierced towards Mihawk in a semicircle. With the length of the distance, the semicircular arc light also becomes larger and larger. Seeing this scene, a deadly sense of danger spread to Mihawk's heart instantly. Seeing the huge arc of semicircle galloping, the black knife in Mihawk's hand, Yi shook suddenly. Holding the handle of the knife with both hands, the whole black knife, Yi raised it above his head. Sudden, blue veins burst out of hands. The extremely tyrannical armed color Haki instantly covered the entire black sword knight. A pair of eagle-like sharp eyes stared at the galloping semicircular arc. Then, head down, the momentum in his body condensed into one point at this moment. All the power is carried on the body of the black sword. The knight, at this moment, the air hums. A mighty, swift force pierces the air. In a split second, a pure black piece of training emerged 350 from the black sword and the sword of the knight. Slash away from the blade. In the next instant, Zhang Zhu turned into a black 100-meter high black horse and flew towards the galloping arc. Boo! Boo! At this moment, it was as if the air had frozen. Both Kixi and Mihawk watched the attack from galloping. Next moment, arc light and slash collide. Inside the deserted island, There was no sound of explosion or cracking. The two attacks collided and melted together silently. However, the moment Kixie saw the attack from both sides melt away, her face was slightly condensed. Her own observation, Haki, told her, "If you don't go, it's too late." After that, Kixie didn't hesitate at all. For his own observation, Haki, Kixie is unusually trusting. After observation, Haki's warning, Kixie's ability to use fluttering fruit directly shot into the sky. On the other side, Mihawk also burst into a powerful force and flew away from the island in an instant. Click. Finally, after Mihawk returned to his coffin ship, there was a sudden, faint creaking sound from the center of the island. Then, in the horrified eyes of everyone in the nearby waters, this deserted island instantly turned into countless rubble and scattered. The endless sea water caused waves of tens of meters in height due to the falling of a large number of gravel. Kixie, who was above the sky, looked again at this time, and there was no trace of the deserted island. Under the attack of the two just now, all the melting power was channeled into the center of the deserted island. It was also because of this that the entire deserted island instantly turned into countless rubble and sank into the sea. I didn't expect that in addition to your prince, the kingdom of Helios would have you, a strong swordsman. 55, standing on his own coffin boat. Mihawk reinserts the black knife knight in his back. He took out a top hat and placed it on his head, looking at Kixie floating above the sky. Eyes narrowed slightly, Mihawk said involuntarily, "It seems that you haven't used your full strength yet. This battle, I lost. I will come again." After finishing speaking, the coffin ship ejected a large amount of power and carried Mihawk straight away from the kingdom of Helios. In terms of swordsmanship, he was restrained by Kixie, and it was his own disadvantage. The power of the slashing was comparable, causing the deserted island to be destroyed. This battle made Mihawk feel benefited a lot. Mihawk didn't have the slightest idea of concealing his weakness in swordsmanship. Downwind is downwind, and Mihawk doesn't bother to hide these things. The most important thing for Mihawk now is to quickly return to his castle to digest the gains from this battle. It's just that Mihawk didn't bother to hide it. However, his words made the newsbirds and others on the side startled. No one would have imagined that a person who had just ascended the throne of the world's greatest swordsman a few years ago would admit that he lost like that. Kixie looked at Mihawk, who was leaving, frowning slightly, but still didn't catch up. Glancing at the ships that were undulating with the waves, Kixie flew directly back to the kingdom of Helios. However, although both sides of the battle have already left. However, this short but extremely fierce battle gradually began to spread towards the entire sea. East Blue, Shimatsuki Village, within the Ishin Dojo. At this time, the sun has set and the moon has risen high in the sky. In a courtyard of the dojo, EC and Koshiro are drinking each other. On the side, Monet poured wine for the two of EC. On the other side, Brooke and others who had already come here played music. Because of Brooke now, the entire swordsman squad has gradually begun to develop in the direction of the music team. Under the influence of Brooke, the members of the swordsman squad also began to contact and learn music one after another. From EC's point of view, after a while, the swordsman squad might change its name and become a music team. Well, speaking of it, Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship is about to end in my generation. Sitting at the table and chatting with EC for most of the day, Koshiro sighed softly. Hearing this, EC was slightly startled. "I remember that the girl in the dojo during the day is your daughter, right? I think his kendo talent is still very strong, and he already has a hint of a swordsman's momentum." 5. Hearing EC's words, Koshiro couldn't help shaking his head. "That's my daughter, Kun. Unfortunately, Kuna is a girl. Girls' physiques are still the boys." In response, EC retorted, "I do not think so." Hearing this, Koshiro was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but look at EC. EC, on the other hand, continued to speak. "What can a girl do? Such a powerful kendo talent. Not practicing swordsmanship is really a waste. Besides, even if a girl lacks strength, can't she take a flexible route? Furthermore, above this sea, there are devil fruits." 39. As long as I eat a devil fruit of the animal type, will the problem of physical strength and constitution be solved soon? 55. Even if there is one more weakness, so what? As long as you love kendo, your weaknesses can be resisted and eliminated. Listening to EC's words, Koshiro couldn't help but be silent for a while. Maybe you're right. After a moment of silence, Koshiro finally sighed. In response, EC smiled lightly. After all, with such a superb kendo talent, isn't it a pity not to learn kendo? After finishing speaking, just as he was about to continue speaking, EC suddenly found that his observation Haki suddenly shot a picture in his mind. And, in the picture, Kuina climbs the stairs to take the sharpening stone and suddenly falls down. Not good. At this moment, EC couldn't even care about his secretly awakened vision of the future. The figure suddenly turned into thunder and instantly penetrated the walls and disappeared in place. 165. Recruitment to Koshiro. News of the battle in the kingdom seeing EC disappear in an instant. Everyone in the courtyard was stunned for a moment. Looking at the scorch hole that penetrated the wall, Koshiro, Monet, Brooke, and others subconsciously released their observation Haki. Not good. Kuina. In the midst of seeing and hearing, Kuina was falling down the stairs. Ignoring the others, Koshiro instantly got up and rushed towards Kuina's position. At the same time, Monet, Brooke, and others also put down what they were holding and left quickly. At this moment, EC's figure has appeared at the gate of the warehouse attic where Kuina is located. Seeing that it was too late, EC's eyes narrowed slightly. Right hand slammed. Zizizi. Boom. A bolt of lightning hits the whetstone in an instant. With a loud noise, the whetstone completely turned into powder. At this time, Kuina, who felt the attack at close range, fell into a coma with fright in the loud noise. A figure appeared below Kuina and caught Kuina's unconscious figure. Whoosh whoosh soon, Koshiro, Monet, and others also came here. Kina. Seeing Kuina unconscious in EC's arms, Koshiro immediately became nervous. Hearing this, EC put Kuina in Koshiro's arms. Don't worry, she must have fainted because she was too frightened. 39. Hearing that Kuina was not in danger, Koshiro let out a sigh of relief. Afterwards, Koshiro knelt down heavily towards EC. Thank you, Your Highness, for saving your life. Seeing this, EC quickly pulled Koshiro up. Not so. 35. Let's take her back to the room first and call the doctor to take a look. 55. Hearing this, Koshiro nodded immediately. As soon as the group walked out of the warehouse attic, they saw a few servants and Zoro, who hadn't woken up, running over quickly. Master, what happened? 95. Master, what happened, Kana? While the people were still asking what was going on, Zoro saw Kuna, who was unconscious at a glance. Hearing this, Koshiro said, Kuna just fell down the stairs. Nothing major, but passed out. Okay, you all go back to rest. By the way, come over tomorrow to clean up the things here. Hearing Koshiro's order, the servants hurriedly responded. Zoro was worried, but he had to go back to his room at Koshiro's strong request. Back in the courtyard, EC, Monet, and others returned to their previous positions. And Koshiro took Kuna back to the room and went to see a doctor for treatment. Under the moonlight, while drinking alone, a wind sounded above the sky. Then, the figure of Guy Ulces quickly descended. Your Highness, there is urgent news from the intelligence department. Hearing this, EC's wine glass froze slightly. What news? Guy Ulces took out a few intelligence bags from his arms and handed them to Monet, who was beside him. Monet took it apart and handed it to EC. Guy Ulces had already spoken when he handed the information bag to Monet. Your Highness, this time there are 2 pieces of information from the intelligence department. First, just today, Lord Kixi, the guardian of the kingdom and the world's largest swordsman, Hawkeye Mihawk, duel on a deserted island. At the end of the battle, Hawkeye Mihawk admitted that he lost, but in the mouth of Lord Kixi, he said it was a draw. The second, the desert island of Sixis in East Blue has been found. However, there's no supply from the deserts all over the island. The intelligence officer who found the island did not rashly search for the Sixus Island. As a result, EC watched and listened to Guy's words over and over again with the information in Monet's hands. Above the intelligence, things will be recorded in a little more detail. However, in general, it is similar to what Guy also said. Handing the information back to Monet, EC couldn't help rubbing his chin and thinking. The news from East Blue Sixus Island is the long-awaited good news for EC. But EC was curious about Mihawk's purpose in the Kingdom of Helios. After thinking about it, EC couldn't help but think of the previous battle with the Redhead in the Windmill Village. If Hawkeye saw that report, he would definitely call Shanks to ask, and Shanks will definitely not hide anything. So Mihawk went to the kingdom to challenge himself. However, because they do not recognize the way, he was dragged by the Poseidon class, and then had a fight with Kixie, who had misunderstood. Thinking of this, EC couldn't help but wonder whether to laugh or cry. EC also thought that Kixie's strength could be hidden for as long as possible. Unexpectedly, Now was accidentally destroyed by Mihawk. 4 Flowers 0. Although Kixie was exposed because of this, he would not be able to stop people from other forces in the future. However, Kixie's exposed strength will definitely make many forces cast their arms against them. It will also be safer for the kingdom. So, EC didn't care about it after a brief thought. Go back and talk to Akatsuki and let her figure out the location of the Sixus Island. Tomorrow we will sail over after boarding the ship. Hearing this, Guy Ulysses quickly wrote it down. Then a pair of wings grew out from the back, and the whole person flew high into the sky again and flew straight to where the dawn was. Ta-ta-tau. At this moment, the sound of Koshiro's footsteps came out. Soon, Koshiro returned to the position just now. Koshiro is well aware of Guy Ulysses' arrival. After all, his observation Haki is still open. However, Koshiro didn't do anything else after sensing that it was EC's subordinate. After confirming that Kuina was all right, Koshiro came out again. I just thanked His Highness for saving his life. 99. As soon as he sat down, Koshiro thanked EC again. Hearing this, EC smiled lightly, without saying anything more about this matter, but directly changed the subject. Just now, Koshiro knows. To this, Koshiro nodded. After all, his observation Haki was always open. Seeing this, EC didn't plan to beat around the bush anymore. If it was before, EC planned to stay here for a few more days. But after figuring out the location of Sixus Island, EC didn't want to stay any longer. Putting down the cup in his hand, EC took out a vampire fruit from the king's treasure and placed it on the table. Animal type, bat fruit, phantom beast, vampire form. Hearing EC's voice, Koshiro's eyes narrowed as he looked at the vampire fruit. Seeing this, EC continued to speak. I would like to invite Mr. Koshiro to come out and become the chief kendo teacher of the Kingdom of Helios. The Kingdom of Helios, now is the time for all people to cultivate. Among them, the vast majority of them practice swordsmanship, and some people with strong talents, although they have outstanding talents, do not have a good instructor. Neither of us have experience, but Mr. Koshiro has a lot of experience, point 35, so I want to ask Mr. Koshiro to come out. I don't know what you think. 10. 166. The trip to Shimatsuki village ended at this time, after EC's words fell. For a while, the surroundings fell into silence. Looking at Koshiro, who frowned tightly and remained silent, EC raised his eyebrows involuntarily, thought for a moment, and spoke again. Mr. Koshiro, East Blue is still too weak. East Blue is a very good place if it's just a seclusion. 99. However, Kuina has a strong personality and is extremely firm in her pursuit of Kendo. Point 35. In East Blue, you can never really grow up. Also, isn't Mr. Koshiro worried that Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship will be discontinued? That being the case, the Kingdom of Helios can just solve your problem. In the kingdom, there is a strong atmosphere of kendo practice, and geniuses appear frequently. There must be a successor who will satisfy Koshiro. 5. According to my observation, even the Zoro you fancy did not actually inherit more Shimatsuki-style sword 350 techniques. More, you are helping Zoro build the foundation and expand his horizons. I think I should be right. 35. After speaking, EC paused slightly and picked up the vampire fruit on the table again. In addition, there is this you demon's devil fruit. The deficiencies of Kuina can be remedied. Then, Shimatsuki-style swordsmanship has the most orthodox inheritor, isn't it? And what happened to Wanakuni? Don't Mr. Koshiro want to make some effort? Hearing Issei's words, Koshiro was shocked. However, after thinking about Issei's prince status, Koshiro calmed down again. After all, as a prince of a powerful country, it is still very easy to check intelligence information. I have never denied my identity as a Wanakuni citizen, so it is normal to collect Wanakuni. Koshiro is also very clear about Wanakuni's current situation. After all, within East Blue, Koshiro was still secretly connected to the Revolutionary Army. Sometimes the Revolutionary Army will also collect information about Wanakuni. Now, after hearing Issei's words, Koshiro's heart was fluctuating for a long time. Finally, after tangled thinking, Koshiro sighed heavily. The situation of possibility of a true succession of disciples. The possibility of dealing with the Wanakuni incident. Thank you, Your Highness, for your appreciation, Shimatsuki Koshiro, and I would like to follow His Highness. 35. After thinking about it clearly, Koshiro did not hesitate at all. His own affairs have not yet been completed, and it is indeed not the time to live in seclusion. Hearing this, Issei smiled lightly and felt a sigh of relief in his heart. For Koshiro, Issei also has little certainty. After all, in the original book, Koshiro has always lived in seclusion in East Blue. Even the whole person is in the Isshin dojo all day long. Now, being able to successfully recruit Dokashiro can only be said to be due to luck. However, the results are still very good. This devil fruit, give Kuina a piece now. Handing the vampire fruit to Koshiro, Issei said with a smile. Alternatively, you can wait until Kuina wakes up, talk to her, and let her eat it herself. 99 as a result. The devil fruit in Issei's hands, Koshiro nodded heavily. After what happened just now, Koshiro also discovered that Issei, Brook, and others were not pure swordsmen, and everyone ate devil fruits. However, Koshiro did not find out that Issei was using the power of the devil fruit during the kendo duel with Issei. In other words, the so-called swordsmen who are not pure enough are actually personal reasons. A pure swordsman who only uses the power of kendo. However, even an impure swordsman like Issei can defeat himself with only kendo power. This also shows that whether a person's kendo is strong or not has nothing to do with whether he eats a devil fruit. Moreover, if Kuina eats this devil fruit, it can even be supplemented. In this way, Koshiro is no longer resisting the swordsman eating the devil fruit. The next morning, Issei looked up for Monet's pair of floppy. Get up and get dressed under Monet's service. Last night, Issei and the others did not go back to Dawn to rest, but rested in the dojo for the night. After Issei and Monet pushed open the door, he found Koshiro, Kuina, and Zoro in an instant. At this time, the three of them were all kneeling on the left side of the door, quietly waiting for Issei to get up. You this is? Blinking his eyes, Issei looked at the three of Koshiro, slightly confused. I have seen Your Highness. Looking at Issei, Koshiro, Kuina, and Zoro gave Issei a slight salute. Then, Koshiro opened his mouth to Issei and said something about last night. Last night in Koshiro was a sleepless night. After Kuina wakes up, Koshiro talks to her. The heart-to-heart conversation between the father and daughter also made Koshiro realize how much damage he had said to Kuina before. And Kuina also knew Koshiro's expectations from Koshiro's mouth. Then, while the two were talking, Zoro, who got up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet, overheard and was caught by Koshiro. Afterwards, Koshiro spoke his thoughts to his daughter and his disciples. Leaving from Wanakuni, road retreat, Shimatsuki village. From Kosaburo's death wish to Koshiro's wish. From Issei's words to Koshiro's own choices. All in all, Koshiro said it to the two people who are closest to them now. And Kuina and Zoro only found out last night that their father/master had so many things on their backs. After that, both of them fully supported Koshiro's decision. And that vampire fruit was also eaten by Kuina. In the end, Koshiro and the two packed up their belongings and directly disbanded the Ishin dojo. Taking advantage of the dawn, Koshiro took Kuina and Zoro to the village to make an announcement and refunded the tuition fees. At dawn, Koshiro waited outside the door with the two of them. After learning about what happened to Koshiro last night, Issei was dumbfounded. Didn't expect Koshiro to be so efficient. Everything was arranged overnight. I looked at the serious Koshiro and Kuna and the green, algae-headed boy. Issei smiled lightly and helped Koshiro up. If that's the case, then the three of you will board the ship with me and return to the kingdom. I believe you will definitely not regret 1.0. 9 after finishing speaking, Issei waved his hand at the three of them, and then integrated the three noble phantasm embryos into their bodies. Now, first give you the only pass to the kingdom of Helios. 9 hum with the integration of the three noble phantasm embryos. The three Koshiro also quickly understood what it was. I can actually check my own personal situation. In this way, I will be able to know my progress at all times when I practice. 35 after the fusion was completed, Zoro looked at his ID card and personal information with joy. On the other hand, although Koshiro and Kuna didn't speak, their joyful expressions were obvious. Now, with the evolution again and again, the noble phantasm embryo has long since been integrated with other things. Among them, the noble phantasm of life, ID card, personal attribute information, etc. now only need to integrate a noble phantasm embryo. 167 The newspaper that flew to the sea. Yasop's unpredictable disaster on a new day. Newsbird's newspaper also flew all over the world again. With the spread of the headlines on the front page of the newspaper, the whole sea soon became lively again. Countless people and forces couldn't help but exclaimed in amazement. Of course, there are also many forces that have begun to fear the kingdom of Helios. On top of today's headlines, it was the battle between Kixie and Mihawk yesterday. Moreover, a picture of Mihawk admitting defeat was attached to the last sentence of the newspaper. As a result, the entire sea suddenly became extremely lively, and there were endless discussions everywhere. New World, the Red Hair Pirates. Shanks, who had lost his energy because of the late banquet last night. After seeing the newspaper that Beckman handed over in the early morning, I suddenly woke up with a jolt. Am I dreaming? Or I haven't woken up yet? Look at the headline of the New World #1 swordsman in the newspaper. Shanks couldn't help wiping his eyes hard. Immediately, Shanks, who felt like he was still dreaming, saw Yasop sleeping beside him. Without any hesitation, he stretched out his right hand and squeezed a handful of Jesus cloth. Suddenly, Yasop's screams resounded throughout the island. What? Bastard Shanks! Why are you pinching me? 35, covering his lower body. Yasop's face turned blue, the veins on his forehead burst out, and he knelt on the ground and yelled at Shanks weakly. I can't seem to feel my bird. 39, ugh. Yasop, kneeling on the ground, found himself in extreme pain. I can't feel the lower body at all. For a moment, Yasop's already painful face added a bit of sadness. The others who were awakened by Yasop originally wanted to get angry. However, after seeing Yasop's tragic situation, they immediately clamped their legs subconsciously. Seeing Yasop's screams getting weaker and weaker, Beckman, who was stunned by Shanks' operation, quickly reacted. Ship doctor! Ship doctor! Dago, hurry up! Save people! As he spoke, Beckman and several crew members hurriedly put Yasop on the stretcher. I seemed to pinch the wrong thing. Until then, Shanks couldn't help but stay for a while. 5 fingers turned into claws subconsciously, and Shanks' face suddenly froze slightly. After his mind fully understood, Shankston looked flustered. I just wanted to say something, but after seeing that the ship doctor to go was already being treated, he subconsciously calmed down. Soon, the ship's Dr. Dege ended the treatment. How's it going? Is Yasop all right? Seeing that Dago had finished his treatment, Shanks hurriedly stepped forward and asked. Hearing this, Dago nodded and said, No problem. It's just blood clotting due to external force. 5, it'll be fine to rest for a while. Hearing Dage's words, Shanks couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. It's dangerous. Yasopp was fine. Shanks was slightly relieved. At this time, Beckman also walked slowly to Shanks' side. You don't need to do such a thing, even if you think you haven't woken up, right? Glancing at Shanks, Beckman took out a lighter with a click and lit a cigarette. Hearing this, Shankston coughed a few times. Ahem, it's just an accident. You have to believe me. Breathing out a breath of smoke, Beckman reached out and patted Shanks on the shoulder. Don't worry, I believe in you. By the way, don't leave me in the future. I'm not very used to it. After speaking, leaving behind the messy Shanks, Beckman turned around and left again. Behind him, Shanks weakly opened his mouth to say something. However, the words could not come out of his mouth at all. In the end, Shanks could only sigh lightly, pick up the phone bug, and walk to a boulder to sit cross-legged and dial the phone bug. Because of a newspaper incident, Yasopp suffered an unwarranted disaster, so Shanks still wanted to ask. Blue blew the phone worm dials. Soon, with a click, the phone was connected. Shanks! Then, the moment the phone was connected, Mihawk's voice rang. Hearing this, Shanks picked up the phone and started asking Mihawk. Mihawk, is it true in the papers? On the other end of the phone bug, Mihawk glanced at the newspaper on the desk. Then he answered Shanks' question. Yes, I did lose. The swordsmanship and swordsmanship I used were all easily resolved by that person. 9. In her swordsmanship attack, I have to spend a lot of effort to solve it. So, without a doubt, in the kendo competition, I have already lost. For his defeat, Mihawk did not hide the slightest. Although in terms of strength, Mihawk and Kixie are similar. However, in terms of swordsmanship, Kixie can easily resolve Mihawk's swordsmanship because of Grandmaster's large number of genres of swordsmanship. And this also made Mihawk subconsciously think that his swordsmanship was not as superb as Kixie. As a pure swordsman, in Mihawk's view, the level of swordsmanship must be more sacred than the level of strength. The throne of the world's greatest swordsman, in Mihawk's eyes, more represents the strength of swordsmanship rather than the strength of strength. If it is only the strength of the strength, it is possible to compete for the title of the strongest in the world. Okay, I have already said what I have to say. Next, I want to have a good understanding of this battle. If you have nothing to do, don't contact me. 35 after speaking, Mihawk hung up the phone without waiting for Shanks to speak. Then, putting down the phone bug in his hand, Mihawk picked up the black knife. Yi walked to his training room. On the other side, Shanks was slightly stunned when he looked at the phone bug that had been hung up. Unexpectedly, Mihawk would hang up the phone directly. It seems that Mr. Hawkeye has really gained a lot. Furthermore, the kingdom of Helios is not so simple. This new world's greatest swordsman and that prince. There are 2 admiral-class forces in one country. This kind of country is rarely seen in New World. As the word sounded, Beckman quietly appeared beside a big tree. Leaning against the tree trunk, Beckman's eyes loomed in the smoke of the cigarette. Yeah, it's really powerful. Hearing this, Shanks also nodded slightly in agreement. East Blue on the dawn, EC put the newspaper in his hand on the table beside him after reading it. I got the information last night, so I didn't feel much after reading the newspaper today. However, on the dawn, when Koshiro looked at the newspaper, a light flashed in his eyes. On the other side, Kuina trembled slightly after seeing the figure of the woman Kixie in the newspaper. Women are on the list of the world's greatest swordsmen. This incident made Kuina's heart have an impulse called blood. As for Zoro, who was challenging the swordsman team in the corner, he didn't find the contents of the newspaper. For a fighting maniac, fighting is always better than reading newspapers. 168. People go to the empty dojo. The furious Charlotte Linlin Dawn is sailing on its way to Sixus Island. At this moment, Koshiro, Kuina, and Zoro are already on the boat with EC. In the future, the 3 of Koshiro will follow EC around. East Blue, Shimatsuki Village, oh? No, people from the Shimatsuki lineage have left. So this existence once again used the previous nickname, Seymour Jiji Village. At this time, people had already entered the empty Ishin dojo. A man in a robe appeared in the dojo, accompanied by the gust of wind. Under the sunlight, with the person's head lifted, the slipper print on his face was immediately exposed to the sun. Monkey D. Long, currently the leader of the Revolutionary Army, already left. As the whispers sounded, there was a gust of wind beside the dragon. For Koshiro, dragons met by accident. Then, the dragon has been constantly inviting Koshiro to join the Revolutionary Army. However, the invitation has never been successful. Afterwards, Long stepped back and cooperated with Koshiro. The Revolutionary Army will supply supplies here every once in a while. And today is the time for the Revolutionary Army to come to resupply. However, the dragon who came here first to win over Koshiro again found that the place was already empty. However, under the perception of observation Haki, the dragon went to the backyard of the dojo. Go through the hallway and living room and into the backyard. Long glanced at the neatly placed supplies and that unopened envelope. Glancing at the supplies, the dragon's finger lightly hooked. Suddenly, the envelope slowly flew into Long's hands under the load of a small wind. After a few minutes, Long put down the letter in his hand and couldn't help looking out at the sea. Prince of Helios went to Helios. The kingdom of Helios, a country that suddenly rose. 35. Before there was the prince who killed the golden lion. And then there was the Patronus who defeated Mihawk. Maybe that was a very powerful boost. 35. New World, Cake Island. Cake Island, also known as Cake Island, is composed of large cakes and cream. It is also the station of Charlotte Linlin, one of the current 4 emperors in New World, which looks like a multi-layered cake. At this time, Snug, who had been dawdling for more than a month at the port of Cake Island, finally returned here. After the loss of the historical text Steel in the Kingdom of Locke, Snag has been trying to make up for it by all means. While delaying time, he launched his subordinates to frantically search for the historical text stone tablet. It's a pity, no matter how delayed, Snug returned to Cake Island after more than a month of delay. Lord Snug, Mom asked you to meet her in the food hall. When Snug got off the boat, a humanoid Hormy-Eyes quickly walked in front of him. Hearing this Hormy-Eyes words, Snug didn't answer, but turned and walked toward the food hall. Snug knew that his mission had failed, and he had been delayed for more than a month. I am afraid that the punishment for waiting will be severe. However, even if Snug was unwilling, there was nothing he could do. Charlotte Linlin's deterrent force made him not dare to act rashly. Walking along the road, after a while, a hall was printed into Snug's eyes. At this time, at the door of the hall, one after another Hormy-Eyes was constantly carrying delicious desserts. Taking a deep breath, Snug walked slowly into the hall. In the hall, in the center, Charlotte Linlin was eating frantically. On her left stood 2 Charlotte family cadres. Candy Minister, Charlotte Perispero, the fruit liquor, the eldest son of Charlotte Linlin. The Minister of Flour, Charlotte Karakuri, the glutinous fruit person, the second son of Charlotte Linlin, one of the 4 current dessert stars. Mother, coming to the center of the hall, Snug bowed to Charlotte Linlin, who was eating frantically. Hearing Snug's voice, Charlotte Linlin's eating action suddenly paused. You're finally back. Snag, what I want. 35. Hearing this, Snag's body trembled slightly. The whole person is completely kneeling on the ground, and his head is tightly attached to the floor tiles. I'm sorry, Mom. That piece of historical text is missing. After capturing the Kingdom of Locke, the historical text stone tablet was originally found. It's just that when I went to suppress the rebellion, the historical text stone tablet disappeared in an instant. 5. The guard around have all turned to coke. 39. So far, the whereabouts of the historical text stone tablet has not been found. I heard that the historical text stone tablet I wanted disappeared. A powerful Conqueror's Haki burst out from Charlotte Linlin's body. You know, what is that? That's a historical text stone tablet. You can't even do such a small thing well. What's the use of asking you? In a fit of rage, Charlotte Linlin knocked over the food table in front of her. What followed was the subconscious activation of the soul fruit that Charlotte Linlin possessed. The power of the soul spell continues to spread, with Charlotte Linlin's questioning. Snag's hair was turning white at a rapid rate. On the surface of the skin, a trace of wrinkles began to appear. Mom, please calm down. Seeing this scene, Karakuri and Perispero on the side were slightly surprised. Katakuri stepped forward to stop Charlotte Linlin. Oh, Katakuri, do you want to order mommy? Turning her head, Charlotte Linlin stared at Katakuri with cruel eyes. In this regard, Katakuri's face was very calm. I didn't think that way, Mom. 35 Snag is one of the great forces of our family. Losing it like this is equivalent to weakening the power of our family. Listening to Katakuri's words, Charlotte Linlin laughed loudly after confirming that he was not lying with cruel eyes. Well, good Lees, well, it is indeed the highest masterpiece of a Charlotte family. Clear mind and strong strength are really great. Oh well, 5, since you've already said so, then I will let this rubbish go. Taking back her soul fruit ability, Charlotte Linlin stopped taking Snag's lifespan. Seeing this, Katakuri hurriedly spoke again. Do you have any guesses about those char bodies, Snag? Listening to Katakuri's words, Snug's eyes flashed with gratitude. However, this time was not the time to thank Katakuri, and Snug said with a slight turn of his mind. After our investigation, we found that those people were killed with the power of lightning. Flame and hot coke corpses are not what they look like. Besides that, it has the power to turn corpses into coke. As far as I know, there's only the power of lightning. 169 C Circle Calendar 1511 arrived at Six's Island. Snugger speculation can be said to have eased Charlotte Linlin's anger. After all, his own son is at least somewhat useful. At this time, Katakuri frowned and said, "The power of lightning. On this sea, there are only a few that can use the power of lightning. In addition to Mama's Thundercloud Zeus, Kaido of the Beast Pirates can also use the power of lightning. There's also the Vinsmoke family in North Blue. I remember a suit that can also use the power of lightning." On the side, after Katakuri's words fell, Perispero's voice also rang slowly. The fur tribe can generate electricity by friction, but the power is generally not too strong, of course. It cannot be ruled out that there are powerful fur tribes. Also, the Prince of the Kingdom of Helios, which is famous in the sea recently. According to the information, he is a person with the ability to strike the thunder fruit. Charlotte Linlin, who is sitting in the upper hand position, laughed happily after hearing the words of her two sons. So, these people are the thieves who stole my historical text stone tablet. Hearing this, Katakuri's heart couldn't help being slightly startled. Fearing that his 350 mother would say something shocking, Katakuri hurriedly spoke again. Mom, these people are just suspects. However, the historical text of the steel, mother, 35, it is very difficult to move something that is so bulky in an instant. And among them, there must be some figures of devil fruit abilities similar to space abilities. It's like breeze mirror fruit. Speaking of which, Katakuri first paused for a moment, and then continued. Besides, the 100 Beast Pirates are very powerful. If we start a war with them, I'm afraid that people will take the opportunity to sneak attack. As for the Fur Tribe, they have always lived on the Elephant Owner, and the Elephant Owner's whereabouts are uncertain, and it is simply difficult to find. And the Kingdom of Helios, its strength is even higher than our family, 2 Admiral-level powerhouses. Other than that, the rest of the kingdom's strength is still a mystery, and we have no chance of winning if we start a war hastily. The last Vinsmoke family, their strength is too weak. Even if they want to touch the historical text stone tablet, they don't have the courage. So, Mom, what we need to do now is to mobilize the intelligence personnel of the family first and try our best to find out who is behind it. Listening to Katakuri's words, Charlotte Linlin couldn't help but have a violent mood in her heart. Charlotte Linlin has always believed that the Charlotte family, founded by herself, is one of the most powerful forces in this sea. Unexpectedly, just a historical text stone tablet was stolen. There will be 2 Charlotte families who have no chance of winning or lose both. However, now, Charlotte Linlin, who has calmed down, has no intention of being angry just now. This matter is handed over to you, Katakuri. You are responsible for finding out who is behind it. 35 hearing this, Katakuri nodded immediately. Got it, Mom. I'll find out as soon as possible. In the center of the hall, after seeing this matter come to an end, Snug's heart could not help but relax slightly. EC is not clear about the Cake Island thing. After all, EC himself didn't think at the time that he would leave such a big flaw. It can only be said that at that time, EC actually did not have much vigilance. After all, at that time, with the kingdom's current force, the Charlotte family would no longer pose a threat to the kingdom. Therefore, EC did not carry out much trace cleaning at that time. However, EC has almost forgotten about these. Now, EC is experimenting with observation Haki, which can predict the future aboard Dawn. At the Ishin Dojo, it was because of the sudden awakening of observation Haki. Kba made it possible for EC to save Kuina, so that Kuina would not perish. Now, as the Dawn sails toward the island of Sixis, EC will continue to familiarize himself with his observation Haki when he is free. Concentrated, safe, and calm, observation Haki is open to the maximum. EC is then able to enter the state of foreseeing the future again. However, this predicting the future can only advance the next 3 seconds for the time being. At the moment of predicting success, the picture will present a godlike top-down perspective into EC's mind. After all, EC's observation Haki is now moving towards a God perspective model. Therefore, it is normal for the picture and form of predicting the future to be imprinted in the mind. Boom! Ouch! Damn it! You scoundrel! You actually bullied me as a child. 5. Hee. It's you who asked me to teach swordsmanship like me. You can't be like this, humph. Look at the sword. Look at the sword. Look at the sword. Yo, I can't hit. Can't hit. Yo, haha. Watch out. I'm going to start off, asshole. Aren't you headed? Yo, hee hee. It's really easy to be fooled, Lu Chi kid. You don't have to be a big head to hit. A head, a small head, is also a head. Damn. I'm going to kill you. Hey. It's useless for you to bite my bone. I won't feel pain. Hey, shut up, kid. I'm drooling all over my bones. Listening to Zoro and Brook, who started fighting again, EC couldn't help but stop observation Haki, who was experimenting. Leaning back on the chair, EC glanced at the two of them lightly. Perhaps because of fate, in this life, Brook and Zoro met first. Although Brook's character has changed a lot, he will occasionally reveal his true form. In this regard, Zoro was upset after seeing Brook teasing the maid once. Needless to say, the result was directly coded by Brook to the ground. After that, after knowing that Brook is a swordsman, Zoro began his own challenge journey. Repeated defeats continued for several days. Like today's situation, it can be said that the airport can see it these days. In this regard, everyone on the Dawn was a little surprised and slowly got used to it. Even Robin, who was later, smiled lightly after learning about it, and found it very interesting. Time passed, and Dawn sailed all the way towards the Sixis Island. Finally, on the first day of the Sea Circle calendar 1511, Dawn arrived at Sixis Island. 170 looking for the burning fruit. Marine's position has changed greatly. Your Highness, we have arrived at Sixis Island. The Dawn sailed unharmed through a rapid, underwater Uzumaki, and arrived at a desert-like island. The whole island is huge, but it's basically gravel at first glance. The desert-like scenery made other people on the boat wonder if there were any traces of burning fruit here. And EC's eyes lit up after seeing the scenery of the island. In a previous life, EC roughly checked the information. I also know that there is a story in which Ace got the burning fruit in a novel written about Ace. When Ace was sailing in East Blue, he was accidentally caught in the sea Uzumaki off the island. In the end, he landed on this island. And on this island, there's already a wanderer. That is the first crew member of Ace, Deus. After that, the two of them tried their best to go to sea, but it didn't work at all. Finally, when hungry, Ace found a devil fruit. However, Ace and Deus at that time didn't know what the devil fruit looked like. Therefore, the burning fruit was divided into 2 parts, both of which were intended to satisfy their hunger. However, because Ace ate it first, the ability to burn the fruit was acquired by Ace. In the end, Ace relied on the flames that burned the fruit to make a fire-breathing boat, so the two were able to escape the island. And the island where Ace and Deus live is this Sixis desert island. Brook, looking at the island, EC's eyes narrowed slightly. observation Haki spreads out and wants to scan directly to the burning fruit. However, under EC's God's perspective observation Haki, there is no trace of burning fruit. Thinking of this, EC realized that the burning fruit should be hidden in a certain cave. Then, he opened his mouth and gave orders to his subordinates. You lead the Jinhao team, and all of them are separated to explore the caves on the island. That burning fruit should be in a certain cave. Hearing this, Brooke, Alsace, and others responded quickly. Yes, Your Highness. Afterwards, the 11 members of the Jinhao team suddenly opened their wings. A person, flapping his wings, flew directly in different directions. Looking at the departing swordsman team, EC no longer wanted to continue scanning with observation Haki. Returning to his place, EC quietly waited while enjoying the service of Monet and Robin. In response, Koshiro on the deck pushed his glasses and didn't say much, but planned to continue teaching Kuina and Zoro. However, Kuina did not intend to cultivate, but showed her bat wings and flew into the island. Father, one more person is one more strength. I'll go look for it too. As soon as the voice fell, Kuina disappeared directly into the sky. Only the silly Zoro and the helpless Koshiro were left. Grand Line, Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Just as EC was looking for burnt fruit, Garp was looking for EC in East Blue. At this time, within the Naval Headquarters, a handover of the old and new Fleet Admiral officially began. Because of the influence of the butterfly EC, some things in this world have begun to change. The handover within Marine, which was supposed to start in 1512 in the Sea Circle calendar, turned out to be a year earlier. The rise of the new 4 emperors in the New World, the power of the kingdom of Helios on the Grand Line, and the continuous influx of pirates from the 4 seas into the Grand Line. Marine, who has been immersed for a long time, also began to transfer power in response to the changes of the new era. Former Marine Fleet Admiral, the current Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Kong, is standing on Marine's central platform at this time. Looking at the neat Marine troop below, Sora's expression also had a hint of pride. This era of Marine can be said to be the most prosperous period of Marine that Sora has ever seen. Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, Crane, Sakazuki, Polyusilino, Kazan, Gion, Kuga Burning Mountain, Ghost Spider, Flying Squirrel, Doberman. The middle-aged and young generations are full of talents. There are several Admiral-level combat powers alone. With the existence of these people, there is no doubt that the sea will be suppressed. Therefore, there is a feeling of pride in Sora's heart that wants to erupt. It's just that Sora doesn't know if these people really do things according to his ideas. Suppressing the sea is indeed an easy task. However, it can be seen from the original. Among this group of people, few really contributed. Garp, needless to say, Roger turned into a jerk when he died. Polyusilino, he knows everything. Admiral worked extremely hard to get a promotion and a salary increase before, but Admiral later found that there was no hope of promotion and he was just a salted fish. Kazan, not to mention this one, rides a bicycle around the sea, which is unique. And Zephyr, who took a back seat after the death of his wife and children, is now in decline. Look, there are a total of 6 Admiral-level combat powers, and in the end, only Sengoku and Sakazuki are still working hard. One is to make some achievements in the position of Fleet Admiral, so that he can make a name for himself after retirement. One is a crazy Sha, an extreme radical who wants to be a Fleet Admiral and wants to kill all pirates. And the sky standing on the high platform right now is not clear. So, Sora looked at all the Marines below with satisfaction and read out the contents in his hand aloud. Nowadays, pirates are rampant and the times are crying. In order to create a beautiful sea environment, in order to move towards a new era, 5, the world government has decided that Naval Headquarters will transfer power in order to suppress the sea and create a better new era. 99, now, the decision is as follows. Warring States, promoted to Marine Fleet Admiral. He was promoted to Marine Chief Staff Officer and headed the General Staff Department. Sakazuki, promoted to Marine Admiral, codename Akainu. Polyusilino, promoted to Marine Admiral, codename Kizu. Kazan, promoted to Marine Admiral, codename Akiji. P.S. Kazan followed Garp to East Blue. So not here, Zephyr, promoted to Chief Marine Instructor to lead all things Marine Academy. Gion, promoted to Marine. As Sora continued to chant, the many Marines in the square also got a little excited. Even those Navy soldiers showed excitement. After all, this era could be described as Marines' strongest era. With so many strong men, isn't it imminent to suppress the ocean and realize Marine justice? At this moment, whether it is the high-level Marine or the low-level Marine, it seems to feel the call of the times. P.S. Ahem, according to the information found, the Warring States period was indeed promoted to Fleet Admiral in 1512 by the Sea Circle calendar. As for when the third Admiral was promoted, it has not been found out, but it should not be very far. After all, Sengoku needs Admiral's men after he is promoted to Fleet Admiral. However, because of the advancement of the content of this book, it is all advanced. Everything is for the content of this book. The final interpretation right belongs to the author of this book. 171 The Burning Fruit is in hand, and the marine change spreads all over the sea East Blue, Sixus Desert Island. After a full 7 days of searching, they finally found the burning fruit hidden in a cave. At the same time, the news of Marine's transfer of power was spread.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.